get the take, right?
Yeah.
You have a take or an opinion on something in football.
Yes.
And yeah, you understand what you mean with whatever you think, but you
Right.
want to word it out.
You want to enunciate it.
Yeah.
And I was doing that in the truck this morning, and then I looked up and I realized I'm not in the exit lane again on 84 right now. I'm just going to continue driving on 205 North for God knows how long. And thankfully, I noticed it right at the last second. I got to go blinker. Then I'm in that weird gray area where it's not really a lane and the lane's curving away. And there was a pickup truck that slowed down and let me in. And I gave him the wave, said, thank you. So I would like to give that guy a shout out. I made it on time because of him.
I'm sure he's listening. And he's like, I remember this guy.
He's a P1. That's the jackass that cut me off. It's like, dude, I don't know. I might have been in Vancouver by now. I just call in, do the show on the phone.
I don't know if you guys could tell. You probably can, because I'm sometimes not good at concealing emotion. I can, from time to time, you can read how I'm feeling. And yesterday, I rolled in with about 4 minutes before the show. Mainly, I was running late, and I had to do the thing I hate the most, and that was I had to cut the divider, where it goes from 84 to either I-5 north or south. Yeah, that line was past the Lloyd Center exit, and I'm like, I ain't got time for this, so I'm going to weasel my way in. And look, I didn't cut anybody off.
Sure, that's fair. As long as you're not cutting somebody off, you're okay.
You just had one of those, gaps where one person didn't go and the line was moving.
Sure.
And so I just weep, I'm just going to fit in right here. And
see, I'll give you the grace here. I feel like this is the equivalent of leaving dog poop on the side. Everybody in their life at one point will have a time where your dog poops and you're like, oh God. And you start patting the pockets, and maybe you're not in your neighborhood. You drove there
2 weeks ago, ran out of bags.
It's going to happen.
I was like,
right?
no.
It's going to happen to the best of us. But there are too many dog poops on the ground for that to be every time somebody doesn't pick up poop. 97% of those are just laziness and sheer, I don't care about other people. And in your case, I feel like 97% of people cutting over late are jackasses.
Yes.
But we're all going to have our times. We're all going to have our days where you're just running late. You got to get to work on time, and you got to unfortunately be that guy.
The worst was 2 weeks ago, ran out of bags, went back the next day to pick it up. It was awful. I don't want to talk about that. Speaking of dog poop, Swigard maintains last night bad football. Can't believe I watched bad football with Bryce Young against Tyson Bagent.
Yes, this is why I will make the argument that I often try and make on this show. You know what was more entertaining?
Well, the NBA had some
Kraken Avalanche game.
Yeah, hockey was going on. I mean, you had
that we were saying in a football bubble here. That we were doing the football thing.
Sorry.
Come on, Louisville, Virginia.
I didn't watch much of that
top 11 team down late in the fourth quarter. Scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes.
I saw that they won, but I just don't have interest in watching Virginia play football. I don't know what that is.
That's fair. That's fair. I got no argument against that.
And I know Louisville was in a bit of a scare there, but they got out of it and they figured it out.
So the argument there would be college football. Sometimes it's a better product. It was more entertaining than that Bears-Panthers game last night.
Would you have rather watched Dan Campbell arm wrestle at midfield against Tyson Bagent's dad than the actual football game? Do you know Tyson Bagent's dad is a world-renowned arm wrestler?
Learned that last night on the broadcast. Thank you, Amazon.
Oh, that was the first time you learned it.
I had never seen that before, no.
No, I had heard that before in some capacity.
He did an interview on Bagent's first start. The NFL Network sent, he's a pretty boy, but he's not a very big guy. What's his name? Pelissaro? I want to say it was Pelissaro.
He's a pretty boy.
Well, you look him up.
A very big guy.
He's got great hair.
That should be his new Twitter bio.
He's got a
never booking him as a guest again.
Oh yeah, pretty boy, not very big.
Oh, he's got great hair. He's got a great face for television. But when you zoom out, his body type screams, "I don't lift weights ever or eat anything." He's just very. He doesn't look strong. Anyways, they did a piece on his dad, and his dad's kind of intense, and he's like, all right, let's go. Puts his hand on the table, and he just mopped the floor with Pelissaro with both hands. And I guess he's one of the best arm wrestlers in the world. And I thought watching this game, I'd rather watch him arm wrestle Dan Campbell to see what happens here.
It was a reminder that there's a lot of bad football out there. There's a lot of bad football that exists, and it's okay to label bad football bad football. I only watched that game and stayed committed to that game because I gambled on the Panthers, and that was the only thing that kept me around. If I did not have any money on that game last night, I probably would have turned it off in the third quarter.
Yeah, but this is my response to Swigert. That was bad football. There's no doubt. And I want to get to something on Bryce Young here. Oh, isn't most of what we watch really kind of bad football? Like, how much football do you watch in a week when you're, I watch some great football?
I think there can be combination. Like, it doesn't have to be high scoring to be great football. Like, you can watch two good defenses go head to head. Like, that was just bad offensive football.
But I think there's
those teams both just are like those might be the two worst teams in the NFL. Cardinals peeking their head around the corner saying, "Hello."
Patriots. I mean,
and maybe the Pats end up getting there, but that's like
smacking ladies in the Boston suburbs.
Like, it's one thing to watch. Yeah, walk of shame for Bill. It's one thing to watch, like, defensive slugfest. Like, Bills and Bengals got off to a 7-7 start right out of the gate. You're like, this could be a shootout. And it didn't end up being a shootout, but that was still a relatively good game. They kept you – there were big plays, and I was emotionally invested in it. Watching two of the worst teams in the league, it's just bad.
I watched a film session on Buffalo, and I thought it was interesting watching it about how bad Josh Allen has been in some of these games with some of the throws. And how defenses are kind of luring him into making some of the throws. Mm-hmm. My only pushback to both of you, even though you're the only one that explained bad football, good football, whatever, I think the only difference between saying I like watching a good defensive football game versus this is bad football is the name of the quarterback.
Yes.
That is the only dividing line between saying bad football or good defensive slugfest, because you could absolutely classify last night as a defensive game, but you won't because Tyson Bagent and Bryce Young are the quarterback, but Joe Burrow and Josh Allen do it, and it's like, this is great defensive football. And that's the only difference in all of this.
I would also add, I think both teams have horrible defenses, don't they?
Statistically, yes.
Okay, so that's the other component that I would add to that argument.
The Bears did,
but that's my point.
Like, the Browns did get Sweat in there and looked. It's hard to judge because
there's not much around
the
him.
Panthers are just so bad.
But see, you were going to bring the Browns up, right?
I was, yeah.
Deshaun Watson sucks.
He does. He's horrible.
So are they in great defensive football games, or is their quarterback suck and their defense has to play a lot?
It's a combo. I like watching Cleveland's defense play. Watching their offense play makes me want to burn my eyeballs. Like, their offense is really tough to watch. And that's just bad offensive football. But when Cleveland holds teams down, I saw that Bill Barnwell had a great tweet last night where he basically said when the Panthers on that last drive, they got to a 1st and 30. They had a 1st and 30, I believe, after 2 penalties. They had like a holding penalty and an offensive PI penalty.
And then they picked up the first
They ended up getting the first down. But on 1st and 30, with time running out at the end of the quarter or 2-minute drill, wherever they were at, they ran the football on 1st and 30 with the game on the line. And I think they picked up 2 yards to set up 2nd and 28. Like, I can't handle that. There was also bad coaching decisions, too, that added to bad football on top of it.
Why would you kick a 60-yard field goal in 22-degree weather?
Exactly.
I don't know how cold it really was, but it looked like it was freezing in Chicago.
In November, man. That's the way it's going to work.
Are you on my side yet on Frank Reich? Or are you still, like, giving him some...
I think I'm on your side.
Thank you.
I'm not on your side on Doug Peterson, but I think I'm getting there on Frank Reich.
No, hold on. I don't think Peterson and Reich are the same.
No, I know you don't. But you're
levels, but yeah.
Yeah, you're not a full believer in Doug Peterson, and I am a full believer in Doug Peterson. But that was... It just... When you watch two bad teams go head-to-head and they can't do anything, it can be frustrating. And Bill Barnwell had a tweet last night where he said, how many drives would it take the Carolina Panthers to score a touchdown against the Cleveland Browns defense? And then I started thinking,
two games.
I don't know how many games until they finally break through, because their only touchdown in that game was a punt return, which they had right out of the gate. And you're like, hey, Carolina's going to win this thing, and then they couldn't get a first down the rest of the game.
Amazon, can we not put false flag labels on a punt return touchdown?
Yeah, what was that all about?
I was worried. I'm like, I'm going to lose the touchdown.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. They saw something on the field. They put the graphic up. Ben Solak, who works for The Ringer, he wrote this last night during the game. There's a lot wrong with the Panthers offense. There's no two ways around that. But you really would like to have seen more from the first-round quarterback by this point, especially the first overall pick, especially when you traded up for him, and that's okay to admit out loud too.
I don't know about that.
I mean, I was out on him before the draft, and I know not all of that situation is great. The offensive line is bad. They traded his best target that he could have potentially had, right, for them to draft him. I like his running backs, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. Those are good players. I just, what are you holding on to with him? What has he shown you at all? He can only throw like 6-yard out passes. He can't step into the pocket and read the field. I don't think he can make the requisite throws that he needs to in the intermediate lengths of the field. Mm-hmm. I know some people aren't going to give up on him, and that's okay. I'm willing to be a little wrong here. I'm rooting for him because I think it's cool when small quarterbacks have success. He's just too small. And I was out on the draft. I didn't understand the trade up for him. And I've continued to follow this season. I just don't see any evidence unless you create some high tempo offense that allows him to basically dump the ball off to playmakers very quickly and let them get out in space.
Yeah, they're going to have a really hard time building around him because they handicap themselves with the trade. Like you would have, Carolina would, after that loss last night, one of the second overall pick in the draft if they still had their pick this year. Think about what you could go get with that or what you could trade that for a team that wanted a quarterback. Now, I know they wanted Bryce Young, and so that was the price to
well,
pay
the owner
up.
did.
The owner did.
Because Frank Reich's come out and said a couple things like, hey, the offense isn't my decision anymore, and I don't know how much he kind of indicated that he didn't really want him. He wanted more Stroud stuff, a bigger body guy. And that Tepper, I mean, we celebrated that new ownership. Celebrate, but we talked about the new ownership group when they got Richardson out.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's been terrible.
He hasn't done anything. I will just say this, though. I agree with the opinion, and I shared it with you going into the draft. Like, I just don't really see it with Bryce Young. I also, I hate when we do this. He is a rookie doing the hardest thing in all of professional sports.
Yes.
On a horrible team with a horrible offensive line. With who's his best wide receiver? Go ahead. Anybody?
Adam Thielen.
Yeah, Thielen.
Adam Thielen.
Who everybody kind of thought was a little
He's
washed
like
up.
39 years old and he can run in routes. Like congratulations. That's your best wide receiver to throw to. And as we just discussed, not really sold on his head coach either.
No, I don't like
And so this dude is undersized with a bad offensive line doing the hardest thing in sports and he's struggling and it's like, he's a bot.
But how quickly can the quarterback lose the confidence to be able to turn the career around? That's the other part of this that nobody talks about.
Here's what I will say. I thought last night they did a good job to try and support him in showing the graphic of other number one picks in recent years and how bad they were and how many games that they lost.
Stafford was awful.
Stafford was terrible.
Go back to
Jared
Troy
Goff.
Aikman.
Go look at
Aikman
Jared
was
Goff.
1-15.
Yes.
They
Goff
threw him
had
in.
Jeff
They
Fisher.
know they threw him into a no-win situation.
Trevor Lawrence had Urban Meyer, and he was terrible as a rookie. Like, Burrow was the only one that they put on the list that you're like, all right, he was okay, but then he tore his ACL after 4 games. So a lot of number one picks have sucked butt and then turned out to be okay. I don't even think that's going to happen with Bryce Young. All I'm saying is, let's give the kid more than 7 games.
You're not wrong. You also named quarterbacks that aren't 5'8", 120 pounds.
That's totally fair.
That's the unfortunate part of
Totally
that situation. It's hard to build around that.
Yes, it is.
It's a Football Friday, as you can tell from the opening segment today. We are live on YouTube.com/1080thefan. Thank you for hanging out with us very early this morning.
We're all fired up, man. I've been arguing with you since I was in my truck at 6:30. Let's go, or 5:30.
Did I make any good arguments in the truck?
No, I want all of them.
Yeah,
I want
okay.
every single one.
That tracks. But we'll Sprague line at 8:30. Get those Sprague line sponsors into the Vancouver Ford text line. Let's start with a little bit of local taste. Which game is going to catch our eyeballs more? That's next on The Fan.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
All right, inspired by a comment made on the show, we have inserted Dirt's workout playlist today. This is the first track.
Here's what needs to happen. I'm going to do this for next Friday.
I don't know
okay?
how you listen to
Are you
this.
cleaning or
See, no.
jerking with this?
What?
Well, excuse me?
Yeah, in your workouts, doing the clean and jerk.
The clean and jerk?
Yeah, that's a weightlifting discipline.
I mean, I know the exercise.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Why would you say
I
it
know
like
what
that?
you speak of, but
I know
you
he
need to
must-
use that phrase at 6:19 a.m.
We know he's wearing the Oregon sweatshirt today.
I love
but
my school, but Jesus, not that
the
much.
clean and jerk.
No, here's the issue though. Okay, so a lot of the
Daisy Duck?
a lot of the good. Oh, ooh, that was a good duck sound. That was pretty solid. So you got to go with more of the the fight songs are fine. A couple of fight songs are okay.
Yeah.
It's more of the drum line and the things that they play during the game. Those are more fight songs. 97% of them suck and they're slow and it's just I'm not running to that. So what I'll do is I have an hour's worth of things on my Spotify.
Yeah.
And I'll do those for next Football Friday. I'll record them in and we'll play those so you can get a taste of what I'm working out to.
I had an uncle, I'll tell you the kind of family I grew up around. I had an uncle that one of the holidays, Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, I remember we were talking about the Disney characters, and my uncle basically was he didn't call it motorboating, but he said if Donald Duck put his face between boobs, he'd just go, just shake his head back and forth. And I remember being I don't know, I was 7 to 10 or something. And I remember just looking what the hell am I listening to right now?
He was ahead of his time. I think that's a big porn category now. He should have started that off 30 years ago, man. Would have made a lot of money.
Is there a Dropbox? It just says
Yeah.
motorboat?
Yeah, I think Donald Duck.
All right. Very quickly, before we get to college, very quickly.
Yeah.
Am I alone in the I'm already tired of the Jason Kelsey mandatory interview in game, sexiest man alive, according to People magazine, and also acting as if the Philadelphia Eagles have created the quarterback sneak because they call it the tush push? Is anybody else picking up on this? I have seen quarterback sneaks my entire life. Theirs schematically doesn't look any different. They just execute it better.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of getting tired of listening to football people just talk about the Eagles as if they invented the quarterback sneak. What the hell are we doing here? Brady used to execute this thing flawlessly in New England.
He did.
Before that, they were doing this in the 90s. Why are we acting like the Eagles invented the quarterback sneak? It's getting kind of annoying.
They just perfected it.
No, they didn't. The Patriots ran it at a 99 success clip mark when Brady was the quarterback.
Yeah, he's one of the all-time greats.
It's a ridiculous take that they made the play or that they run it the greatest of all time. It's dumb, and I'm kind of getting annoyed if you can't tell.
Also a little disrespectful to rugby.
It
'Cause
really is.
I mean, it's a rugby. The way that they
Yes.
run it, that's the only
It's a
difference.
scrum.
Brady was smart with the snap count and the timing of it and picking the gap between the center and the
He was
guard.
great at
He
it.
was elite at
Yes.
that, but his quarterback sneaks were slightly different. The Eagles is more, it's a rugby scrum is what it is.
Cool. They're doing the USC at Notre Dame play.
Sure, I mean, that's
saw
what
that in 04. That's not the Eagles.
It's the funny thing of them inventing that play. If you're a rugby player, you got to be watching that dude, this is what our sport is. We do this all the time in our sport. This is, I see this every weekend.
So Nick Sirianni watched the Bush push and said, I'm going to make a play and call it the Tush push. That was what happened, and then everybody just gave him credit for it. It's unbelievable. Anyways, I'm sorry. The Eagle thing is annoying to me. Win a Super Bowl and then act like you run the entire league of football.
They were close. We'll
Yeah,
see if
you
they
lost.
get back this year.
You lost. The Niners have been close. They lost.
They have.
What game do you think is going to entertain you more? This kind of goes back to our original conversation of that is ugly football or that was a great defensive game. Do you think Utah UW or USC-Oregon is going to keep us a little more, glued to the TV?
I think it'll be USC-Oregon simply because I fear that if Washington is able to get a little bit of a lead at some point, 10, 13, 14 points, Utah just doesn't possess the kind of offense that can catch up. USC always has the potential.
Against that defense, it can't?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not the way that they play. USC always has the big play potential, so unless Oregon's up like 28 in the third quarter,
Right.
which isn't out of the realm of possibilities. I'm not
No, if Lanning can do it, he'll do it.
But there's still that big play capability of USC that will keep you hanging around, and the potential for it to be closer than is comfortable down the stretch.
Okay, Dirt.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the take. I think the fear that I would have on USC side of this argument is I could totally see there being a strong quit factor in that locker room of like they're going to come out with all this. We still have a lot to play for and everything's still in front of us. It's like, not really. If you win this weekend, sure, maybe you're still alive, but you need a lot of other things to fall your way. I could totally see that being a team who just fired their D coordinator, who doesn't have a lot of belief, whose goals in the preseason were to play for a national title and to win a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
And if you're down by 24 at halftime, like that second half could get ugly, right? Like I don't think you're going to come out and get a grade A championship effort from USC in the second half with a fired defensive coordinator. For that reason, I will go Washington and Utah. I think it has a chance to be a closer game throughout the course of it because of Washington's defense. I do think Utah's going to be able to run the football on them. And I think there's the opportunity there for just some tightness for the Huskies where I have a hard time seeing it with Oregon and USC. I mean, we'll break the game down today. But
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Utah and Washington is going to be more competitive in the fourth quarter than Oregon and USC is. And so for that reason, I'll say it's going to be more entertaining.
Well, I also leaned Utah, UW, when I thought about this yesterday. Certainly Caleb showing up and USC surprising people in their effort, and maybe they're tied at 24 all going into the fourth quarter or something. Like, yeah, then I'm in. But I was thinking about just the styles, and I keep saying this week after week, but I think it's really true, especially at the top of the Pac-12 race. Styles make fights. You said something on Monday or Tuesday about Oregon, Utah. You said common opponent. And I think there's a really good chance, Dirk, come Monday, we're not talking about UW winning 35-6, that kind of margin.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a real chance we talk about a closer game. But I also would say that to me is not an indicator of difference between two programs.
No, doesn't have to be.
I think UW's style of football offensively and how their defense is kind of middle of the road, not great. The run game, very hit and miss. I just think that style lends itself to closer contests. And I think Oregon's brand of football for most teams is hard to keep up with because of the physicality on the offensive line and the physicality on the front seven,
Mm-hmm.
not to mention their big DBs. And so, like, I think a lot of people come Monday, maybe they point to the two games and they say, well, look what Oregon did to USC and look how UW only beat them by 10. And look what UW did with Utah versus what Oregon did. And I don't think that's the way to measure it. I don't think that's a good measuring stick. Like, if they win, they win. UW plays a more finesse style of football with just like elementary elements of their offense. We're slinging the rock.
Mm-hmm.
We're not ground and pound. And I just think that can open you up to closer contests. So common opponent stuff is there. I don't know if Monday, if UW wins a narrow game and Oregon blows out USC, I'm really going to point to either one of those matchups for both programs and say, see, this means I think Oregon is the better team right now. Common opponent doesn't change my thinking in that.
Yeah, that's more of like a warning to Husky fan of like, if that is the scenario, just brace yourself. Because if you think the noise is loud now, people like ranking Oregon ahead of them and talking about point spreads and all that. My advice, my free unsolicited advice to Washington fan is just don't care. Like, it doesn't matter.
I don't think they do. I think what bothers Husky fan is the noise. It's like if it was reversed, if Oregon would have beaten UW, and then
Oregon went through this a couple of years ago. We went through this, and Oregon fan was exactly how Washington fan is right now.
What do you mean?
When they beat Ohio State, and then 2 weeks later they lost to Stanford, so that's a difference. They lost to Stanford. But Oregon, the rest of that season, was not a good-looking team. They lost to Stanford.
Okay.
They barely beat Cal. They were lucky to be like, you go look at their schedule, and by the time the playoff rankings came out, there was the argument of who should be ranked higher, Oregon or Ohio State. They had the same record. Oregon beat them, but Ohio State was blowing people out.
Yeah.
And so we went through this. And I remember a lot of Oregon fans got upset. And in hindsight, I was like, dude, it's like, let it settle itself. If you're the better team, you're going to have a chance to prove it again. not at home field, on a neutral site. And so people want to tell you for the next 3 weeks, if you're that Oregon's better than you, don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Because if you win out, you're going to go to Vegas. If Oregon wins out, they're going to go to Vegas, and you're going to have a chance to shut everybody up.
Right.
Because everybody is going to pick Oregon to win that football game. That's just the way that we're trending right now. So that was more of like just brace yourself. If Washington wins by 6, like 31 or 31-24, something like that, win by a touchdown, and Oregon wins by 3 touchdowns at home, that narrative is going to continue to grow. And people are going to say, see, this is what we're talking about. But to your point, it doesn't mean anything when the two teams meet again, if they meet again in Vegas. It doesn't have any bearing on that.
I would say from the Husky perspective, as I can sometimes infiltrate that fan base, because my cousin went there, so I can kind of like blend in and be a Husky for a second. I think what bothers me more than the noise of Oregon is better than Washington right now, I think what bothers me more that I'm keeping in the back of my head is how many times I've already heard Oregon minus 6.5 in the rematch or Oregon minus 8.5 on the rematch. And like that might happen, but that's a pretty big number between two teams who have played the last 2 games, a margin of 6 total points.
6 total points. It would be a swing of 9 in the spread from the first time they met.
And so like when you get to those kind of numbers after my team had already beaten the Ducks, that's what I'd be holding on to a little more than this week by week. Well, Oregon looked really good and UW didn't look as good. That's whatever. It'll settle itself in the Pac-12 title game, and that's where I would be upset because of the margin between the two teams, according to some odds makers.
Yeah, blowing out USC has no bearing on if you're going to beat Washington again in Vegas.
No.
Like or for the first time, I should say, this year. So it has no bearing on that. I think the aspects of Utah-Washington that I'm fascinated by, Utah is coming off a cakewalk, 52-3 win in which their feet are up in the second half. Washington is coming off a game that they were pushed. I mean, USC was right there. They got a big sack late in the game. Their defense came up with big plays, but that was a back-and-forth barn burner. You're using a lot of energy, late-night game. And this is just starting a gauntlet for them. We knew it all year, starting with USC. Now you get Utah. Next week, you got to go to Corvallis. And so can you bring it 3 weeks in a row? This is undoubtedly the toughest stretch of their schedule.
Let's get to some NFL. We'll get back into college football, but there's a little bit of the local taste on Oregon, USC, and Utah and Washington. Let's get to the NFL. Some observations I made from the schedule on the NFL. We'll do it next, but first, Swag with the Sports Update.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by PG Long. Your new floors are in stock and ready to install at PG Long, your Northwest flooring experts, pglongllc.com. First on the Fan, Ducks and Beavers both home this weekend, looking to keep their opportunity to play in the Pac-12 title game alive. 6th-ranked Oregon hosting a reeling USC squad no longer ranked. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Kickoff 7:30 p.m. right here on the Fan Saturday. Our live pregame coverage from Eugene starts at 3. Ducks 14.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. 12th-ranked Oregon State is 20.5-point favorites over Stanford in Corvallis. It is a 2:30 kick on the Pac-12 Network. Meanwhile, number 5 Washington looks to stay undefeated, hosting 18th-ranked Utah. 12:30 kick on Fox 12. Oregon Huskies 9.5-point favorites. Reports out of Ann Arbor indicate the Big Ten is expected to announce a response to Michigan's address of the allegations of sign stealing early this afternoon. Wolverines will travel to Penn State tomorrow. Bears defense held the Carolina Panthers without an offensive touchdown for a 16-13 win Thursday night, giving undrafted NCAA Division II quarterback Tyson Bagent his second NFL win as a starter. Well, number 1 overall pick Bryce Young of the Panthers still stuck on 1. College hoops tonight here on the Fan. The Oregon Ducks hosting the Montana Grizzlies in their home opener at Matt Knight Arena. 6 o'clock tip. We'll have pregame coverage at 5:30 following primetime. Ducks 16.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
One number does it all for contests and
Total Wine & More. With so many bottles to choose from, it's easy to find your favorite and new ones. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, always find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Drink responsibly. B21.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
I have a couple college notes I want to get to. We'll get back into Oregon, SC, UW, Utah. Love a little bit on Oregon State, Stanford. Cougs, I love you, Coug fan. You know I love you. I don't know what to talk about anymore with them. They're so disappointing.
Yes, they are.
Pick your poison this weekend. We hyped up last weekend. I feel like the couple weekends where we've had like 2 or more great games on the schedule for the NFL, we've hyped them up, and then they've just been absolute duds.
The Ravens happened. Is that what you're talking about? How we got excited for Ravens and Lions, and it was 800-0, and then Ravens and Seahawks. This is a good game, and no.
Dude, I put Ravens Seahawks on my iPad while the red zone was on the big screen, and I just found myself zoning out of the iPad. I'm like, no, that this is over.
No need to watch that.
And over quickly. Hawks Commanders.
I'm excited about that game.
Ravens Browns.
Does it for me.
Niners Jags.
Very excited.
Lions and Chargers.
I like it.
I thought you'd say, oh my. And then who could ever forget? Raiders Jets. You poo-poo that game.
I'm not watching that game.
And that might fall under ugly football. That's going to be a close competitive game that actually has playoff implications.
I mean, all the Jets games are close and competitive because their defense is good and their offense can't get a first down. So that game, I guarantee you, will be something along the lines of 13-10 going into the fourth quarter. The Raiders will have like 174 total yards of offense. Zach Wilson would have taken 3 terrible sacks by that point and probably thrown 2 interceptions. And then, hey, it's anybody's ball game in the fourth quarter. That's exactly how that game will go. Mark it down, replay that on Monday.
So how many, I went through the whole schedule, and I just was like, have implications and matter.
There's one that you didn't include that I'm actually kind of excited for, too. Can I throw one more into the bunch?
Absolutely.
People might laugh. Actually, there's 2 more. Can I throw 2 more into the bunch?
2 more?
There's 2 more. I think there's a really good slate in the NFL this weekend.
Okay, what 2 games did I miss here?
I'm actually pretty excited for Cincinnati-Houston. C.J. Stroud coming off the rookie record, going on the road. Like, the Texans are 4-4. They got a shot at the playoffs.
They're flirting with the playoffs.
They're flirting. Yeah. Cincinnati seems to be back. They got a lot of injuries at wide receiver. It's a 6.5-point spread. Like, I got excited. Like, what can C.J. go do it again? I'm very excited to watch that game. The other one, and this is because the NFC is largely stupid outside of 2 or 3 teams, the wild card race in the NFC is going to be fascinating over the next couple of months. There are 2 teams that are currently alive and have a great shot at making it. One maybe is a division winner. Saints and Vikings, both 5-4.
Yeah,
de facto playoff game.
I thought about it.
Dobbs, can he win back-to-back games? Carr and his stupid eyeliner. I'm excited about that game.
I think the Saints suck.
I do too. I also don't think the Vikings are very good.
I don't think they are either. Justin Jefferson got elevated into practice. I don't know. I don't think he's playing.
I don't think he's going to play this weekend.
But he's back. Yes, he's getting ready.
You got like when you come back from IR, what do they got? Like a 21-day window where you can start practicing, and then you got like 3 weeks basically to activate a guy.
What are we going to do with Dobbs if he wins?
We're going to look at the Vikings as a playoff team, man.
Are we?
They've won like 3 in a row and 4 out of 5. They're playing good ball right now.
So you think the Pastronauts really going to potentially lead the Vikings to the playoffs?
Dude, there's bad quarterbacks that make the playoffs all the time. That's all the time.
Yeah, I don't.
Daniel Jones won 10 games last year. Think about
Manilovic.
He won a playoff game last year against those Minnesota Vikings, and he sucks.
I'm afraid that Niners-Jags is going to end up being a dud. I'm afraid. Well, Chase Young's debut this weekend.
You mean in terms of you think it'll be a blowout? That's the dud it is?
Well, I don't know. Maybe the Jags will win this game. I think it's actually a good spot for him, I think. I think the Niners are dealing with some stuff offensively. The Debo injury has hurt them.
He's going to be back, though.
Purdy's getting a lot of pressure, man. Oh, by the way, wore his hat backwards yesterday. Might be out on him. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. His hat wasn't facing forward.
He was back on his farm last week, though. They had a bye. He's on the farm with the wife. He's feeling good, man.
The unfortunate thing with the NFL, and I love me the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I will watch every weekend. It's hard to really pinpoint games and go, man, look at these games. Because what was the game of the weekend last weekend? I hate to tell everybody this. It wasn't Bengals-Bills. It was Falcons-Vikings. And I can't believe I said that out loud. But that was the most entertaining game of the day. A guy who had just signed to a team that he knew nobody on and had never taken a snap with the center was asked to come in and run plays as his coach told him what the play was every single play, and he won a road game.
That he did.
So, like, we label all these games, and it's going to end up being what's it probably going to end up being this weekend? It's going to be something stupid. It's going to be
like Colts and Pats is an all-time classic.
Levis is going to throw for 3 tuds. Baker's going to throw for 3 tuds. Overtime thriller that ends in a field goal. That's how the NFL is. Packers-Steelers is going to be the best game of the weekend.
Oh, no. I can guarantee you that will not be the best game of the weekend.
I'm just saying, you see my point, though, right?
Chargers-Lions has the potential for all sorts of wackiness.
I agree with that, yes.
I'm actually really excited for Chargers and Lions. I think that, like, Brandon Staley the last couple of weeks has come out and done the whole, this is what our defense looks like when we're healthy. It's like, well, you also played the Bears and the Jets.
Tyson Bagent.
Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit, okay? Zach Wilson is not good. It doesn't take somebody with a brain to realize that he's not good.
Sure.
So now you're taking on the Lions. You want to come out and pump your chest and say, our defense is back and we're healthy and look how good Bosa looks, even though he missed practice this week because he was sick. So that was ironic. He's finally back and healthy.
That guy just doesn't play.
He missed practice again.
Play.
So let's see it. Let's see it. You're taking on Detroit. That's a playoff team in the NFC. It's one of the best teams in the NFC. Can you get that win? The Chargers are back at 500. There's a massive game for them, man. Like, the AFC wildcard race is going to be nasty. You got all those teams in the North. You got the Bills, the Dolphins. Like, the East is going to be difficult. And so this is one, if you're the Chargers, if you want to make the playoffs, you got to win a game like this. You eventually have to beat one of these teams that people view as better than you. You can't just beat up on the Bears and Jets and make the playoffs. They need this one.
Well, also, don't overlook. I hear what you're saying, and you're right, but I think this is probably bigger for Detroit because they're stuck in between the Niners and Eagles right now of keeping at the top of the NFC, and they're not out of getting the 1 seed.
No, they're not. They're only a game behind Philly.
And I think they're a very good team. I don't think Baltimore is representative of who they are. And, Dan Campbell actually liked that his team got his ass kicked in Baltimore. I know he wasn't happy, but he basically said, this is good for us. We need this.
Sometimes you need to be humbled.
I think they're a better team than the Chargers. I've thought about spreading the line on them all week. I think they're going to win that game by more than 3 points, but yeah, for both of them, it's a massive game because the Lions are trying to keep lockstep with the Niners and the Eagles, and they want home field if they can get it, and so here they are. They can't let these games slip away.
It's crazy to think, just for a moment, noodle on the idea that if the Lions do lose to the Chargers this weekend, our Aurora boys go down in L.A. in front of all Detroit fans.
Yeah.
And the astronaut wins in Minnesota.
The Pastronaut. He's a quarterback, and he's an astronaut. They're calling him a Pastronaut.
I don't like that. I'm just going to call him an astronaut.
I kind of like the Pastronaut.
If the Vikings win this weekend, they are a game out of first place. Actually, I think it would be a half game because they'd be 6-4 and the Lions would be 6-3. They're a half game out of first place.
So stupid.
The other game I'll throw at you, very excited for, and this one probably will not end up being great, but it's the Seahawks. So you know what? It probably will. Seahawks and Commanders, man.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, man.
Like the Commies are not very good. They had the fire sale. They just got a random win last weekend,
but they just played their good game.
Exactly.
They're probably going to lay a dud in Seattle.
And Seattle has a tendency to play down in competition, and they have games that you're just like, are you there? Hello? Yeah. I don't really know what to make of the Seahawks at this point in the year. They went from last week being in first place to this week being like, should we bench Geno Smith? It's funny how quickly the world turned.
They should have lost. I'm still stuck on the Brown game.
They should have lost that game.
They should have lost to the Browns, and I think
they flirted with losing to the Cardinals a couple of weeks ago at home. That was a tight, uncomfortable game in the fourth quarter.
We'll have more on the NFL as we go along. We'll spread the line as well. But coming up next, will history be made in college football this weekend? I'll tell you how next on The Fan.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
You know what fight song this is?
I can tell you a lot of fight songs.
I know you can. It's your sneaky good talent.
You know what it's from? It's from playing NCAA football. I used to play that game religiously, and all they would play in the background would be fight songs. And so they just play over and over and over and over and over again. And so I know a lot of fight songs.
I hate this one.
Why don't you like Michigan? What's wrong with Michigan?
It's Ohio State.
Oh, it's Ohio State? I thought we were going to play the Michigan fight song.
It's just something in the system happened. This sounds kind of crappy, too. Like, it sounds like...
Are we okay over there? Are we still on the air?
Yeah, something's happening here.
So I just said in our ear something went wrong.
Well, why are you...
Well, no, we had all these fight songs listed, and I went to pull it up, and then it said access denied.
Can you
and
turn
I'm
this off? This sounds awful.
Oh.
I appreciate your effort, and I know this isn't your fault. Now, you just went up. Why did you go up?
because it was stuck, and I have to go above the decibel level to
It's
capture
already a
it.
sticky board.
Yeah.
What fan employees hanging around after dark? How do you think Michigan is going to respond to all of this stupid noise this weekend at Penn State? That's not the history that could be made. I'll get to that in a second. How do you
Yeah.
think the Wolverines are going to respond? Reportedly, they're supposed to find out
Today.
their punishment as they're in the air going to Happy Valley. So I don't know what's going to happen with Harbaugh, but he's planning to coach.
His attorney came out and said he's going to be on that plane. He's flying to Penn State, and he's going to be there.
Yeah.
Will there be a suspension? I don't know. How quickly can you file a lawsuit to challenge it? I don't know how all of that legal mumbo jumbo works. I don't think this is going to have that big of an impact on the game. I more so think the bigger impact is I don't know how good Michigan is, man.
You do.
I just don't.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, are they the best team in the country?
Penn State has 6 top 10 wins in the 21st century. The
That's
same
right.
number as Purdue, Iowa State, Pitt.
See, I don't even like doing that, though. Ohio
Why?
State's never had a good NFL quarterback. What does Penn State from 2004 have to do with Penn State now?
I mean, their common things are that they don't beat the great team in
Sure.
their conference.
I know, but I totally get the
I
argument.
think you know how good Michigan is.
I don't. Are they the best team in the country? Are they the second best team? Are they better than Georgia? Are they better than Ohio State? Or they have?
Don't you think they're better than Ohio State by just look? Based on what you saw last year and
Sure.
based on what you've seen this year with Kyle McCord.
Did they know Ohio State signs the entire game last year?
Well, yeah, but the one that we used as a highlight, Ohio State scored a touchdown.
Sure.
So, that didn't do everything for them in that game.
Let's do the playoff. Based on the way Michigan played against TCU and based on the way Ohio State played against Georgia, who do you think was better?
They both lost.
Sure, they
Does
did.
it matter?
And Georgia beat TCU by 8,000 points, and Ohio State should have won that game if Kirby Smart doesn't call a timeout when they're trying to call a fake field goal on 4th down. Like, I don't know, man. This cheating stuff has thrown a wrench into everything about Michigan.
That final score was 51-45, by the way. Michigan.
TCU. It was a shootout. They were down big, and they came back in the second half. It was a great game. We had a great playoff last year, really for the first time ever. But I think there's not a person alive that would argue that TCU was a harder opponent than Georgia, and Ohio State should have beaten Georgia, and then we know how the national championship went. So I'm not just going to go for 2 years and say Michigan's been dominant, therefore they're going to be dominant again. I think Penn State has a legitimate shot to win this weekend.
Are you taking Penn State?
I would take them with the points, yeah. I don't know about to win outright, but they were right there with Ohio State in Columbus. If you don't have a weird defensive penalty and that defensive touchdown holds, you might have had a different outcome there.
That kid couldn't do anything. He threw like 45 times for like 110 yards.
I would
It
also
was
add that
awful.
it's different to go into Columbus and do that than to do it at home. And they're going to be at home in front of their crowd this weekend. It is hard to win on the road in college football.
It is.
And Michigan has played literally nobody this year.
I hate the schedule. they have.
Nobody.
I absolutely hate it. I think we do know how good they are.
They're a good team. I'm not saying they're a bad team.
I know.
I'm just saying, like, if you want to be considered a national, this is a game you go win. You don't get the benefit of the doubt when you've beaten nobody. This was the stuff on Tuesday that pissed me off with McElroy. It's like we're questioning Oregon's wins and losses against Alabama. It's like, why is Michigan ranked third? How are they allowed to be ranked third when resumes are supposed to matter? But that's not an issue, but Oregon being ranked ahead of Alabama is. They have not beaten a ranked team all season. So if you're a top 3 team, go prove it, man. Go blow them out.
Will history be made? Rutgers, Iowa is now the lowest over-under in football history at 28.5. Last week, it was Northwestern Iowa, and it was 29.5, and it cleared by 12 points.
Easy.
7.
Very easy.
I read you the play-by-play of the first half, which basically was punt, fumble, punt, interception, punt, punt, half.
A lot of punts in there.
Will we get history? Under 28.5, Rutgers, Iowa.
I don't think so.
You think Rutgers is going to blow them out, don't you?
I don't think they're going to blow them out, but I think Rutgers has a functioning offense.
Rutgers isn't a bad team.
They're not a bad team.
Not a bad
but
team.
Still against, it was Ohio State, so it's a little different, but they kicked field goals forever.
Sure, they got stuck inside the 5 and had to settle for 2.
28's a low ass number.
Is there a
It's also
prop
like
on
NFL
this?
talent.
Is there a prop on this with no offensive touchdowns?
That'd be a great 9-6.
All
12
field
to 9.
goals.
Yeah.
Like that's
Now
even
you can see a
12-9 makes you
defensive
uncomfortable.
touchdown. You can see a scoop and score or
Yeah.
a pick six or
Punt
a
return or
punt
something,
return or something. But if there's a prop for no offensive touchdowns,
I'm also rooting hard against Iowa.
Yeah,
I don't like. Iowa. No,
hey, they finally said the Ferenc kid's not coming back next year.
Yeah, they're letting him coach the rest of the year.
Who
which,
do
like,
you
what
think
are
they're
we
going to go hire? you think Kirk Ferentz is going to go, yep, I'm just going to take some guy I don't like.
Yeah, some brilliant offensive mind's going to be like, sign me up for that overhaul. I want that job. I don't want them in the Big Ten championship game. And so please, that game's going to suck no matter who's in
so
it.
if they don't
But
go,
at least,
who's in that?
Yeah,
division?
you're acting like Iowa is so much worse
I would
than
much-
watching Nebraska or
I would rather
Minnesota.
watch Nebraska.
No,
I
you
would
wouldn't.
rather watch Wisconsin.
No, you
and I would rather watch Minnesota.
Dude, we just watched Ohio State, Wisconsin. They scored 10 points.
I'd rather watch that. Give me that game over Iowa. Give me that game.
I don't think there's any
They have
difference.
scored 166 points this year. Iowa, 166.
What's the record?
I don't care.
It's better than Minnesota. It's better than Nebraska.
What are
and
they,
it's
7 and
better
2?
than Wisconsin.
Wisconsin scored 212, baby. That's a 60-point
There you
difference.
go.
Okay, but their record's
Again.
better than all those teams you
Is
listed.
it great defense
I
or
want
bad
nothing to do.
football?
I
Yeah,
want
is that a
nothing to
good
do.
football game or a bad football game? Rutgers, Iowa. We should
This
put
is
that as a poll
awful,
question.
awful football. That should not be
Awful?
allowed. It should not. It should be banned. They should never be allowed to play FBS football again.
I have a theory that Greg Schiano looks in the mirror all week and goes, I can't wait for this game. I think Greg Schiano lives for this game.
Rutgers has scored nearly 100 points more than Iowa this year.
It's insane.
Nearly 100 points more than Iowa.
That's going to be such a bad football
I just feel
game.
genuinely bad for Iowa fans.
I don't. You choose to paying to watch that product. That's on you, man.
Like at some point, give me something that's entertaining to watch. This is not entertaining in any way, shape, or form. It's an embarrassment.
I'd rather go make fake crop circles just to get the news out to my house than watch Iowa football.
Here's a fun poll question. How many points would Iowa score on USC's defense? Could they get to 20?
15.
Is that a scheduled game next year?
Oh, good question. Let me see.
Hope it is.
Let me see. Hold
Lincoln
on.
Riley. Lincoln Riley losing a game 15-12.
Oh God.
That would put him in a hellscape, wouldn't it?
I mean, they're the inverse of each other. Like
They
if
are.
you just cared about the other side of the ball, they are not on USC's schedule next
Are
year.
you saying Iowa and USC should just get married and have
Yes,
a baby and be
they
like,
should.
now we're the greatest
like
football.
USC? If you just cared about defense, how good could you be? Iowa's defense is pretty good. Their defense isn't bad. They've always been good. If you just had a pulse offensively, how good could you be?
Well, how do they get all these tight ends and their offense is always this bad? How do you get George Kittle and Fant and Hawkinson?
so
like,
the
how do you
one-
get all these guys?
The
in
one
sub?
to go see, Washington is at Iowa October 12th.
I
next
have
year.
texted my cousin.
At Iowa? In
Yeah,
Iowa?
I've
Okay.
texted my cousin and said, are you interested? Because I just want to see the spectacle of 12 points in person.
And they get the Huskies the week after they go to Ohio State.
And I want to wave to the children. I want to see the venue and see how Iowa fan actually feels about Kirk Ferentz. And then I want to wave to the kids. I've thought about going to that game specifically.
We do get USC Iowa in 2025. We got that game. It's
Where
in
is it?
In LA. In LA.
That's
Oh,
a
that's
dud.
not the
You
same.
want to see it in Iowa.
Yeah.
It makes it more entertaining.
In November when it's like 13 degrees
Yep.
and you're like, God, why are we playing this game?
80,000 people choosing to dress in all yellow in one section and black in the other to watch their team score 6 points.
Not score an offensive touchdown.
They've
just
got to be the
torture.
most miserable people in America, don't
Yes.
they? The Iowa football fan.
Without a
No,
doubt.
they're happy.
No.
Life is easy. They love their corn.
I don't think they like that team. They have to hate that team.
Give me a big steak and some corn. Life's good.
I think that's the benefit of there's nothing else to do in Iowa.
Again, I'd rather make crop circles on my own farm and then be like, look what happened here, than go watch that team
They can't
play
watch
football.
Major League Baseball. There's 6 teams blacked out in their market. What are you doing?
Hour number 2. Let's dive in. USC and Oregon, and then we'll get to UW and Utah as well. Loaded.
Friday on The Fan.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Pressure steps up, goes down.
KFXX KWJJ HD2 Portland. An Odyssey station. Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Laurelhurst Market Steakhouse and Butcher Shop. Their butchers are all trained chefs, eager to help with cooking advice. Get to know your friendly neighborhood butcher online at laurelhurstmarket.com. First on The Fan. Ducks, Beavers, both double-digit favorites at home this weekend, trying to keep their hopes alive to get in a Pac-12 title game. Number 6, Oregon welcomes a reeling USC squad to Autzen for Pac-12 After Dark, 7:30 kick. You'll hear it right here on The Fan. Our live pregame coverage from Eugene begins at 3 o'clock. Ducks 14.5-point favorites. Number 12, Oregon State is 20.5-point favorites over Stanford and Corvallis for a 2:30 afternoon kick on the Pac-12 network. While number 5, Washington tries to stay undefeated, hosting number 18, Utah, 12:30 on Fox. Huskies 9.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. The Bears defense held the Carolina Panthers without an offensive touchdown, a 16-13 win on Thursday night. That gives undrafted NCAA Division II quarterback Tyson Bagent his second win as an NFL starter. College hoops tonight right here on The Fan. The Oregon Ducks hosting the Montana Grizzlies. It is the home opener at Matt Knight Arena, 6 o'clock tip. Our pregame coverage starts at 5:30 following primetime. Oregon 16.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swangard from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
The latest Blazers moves and breaking news. Keep it here on your home for all-day Trail Blazers coverage. 1080 The Fan. Dirt and Sprague on Football Friday on 1080 The Fan.
The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app, follow 1080 The Fan, and enable push notifications to get the latest on the Ducks, Beavers, Blazers, and more.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, hour number 2. Went a little long there on Iowa football. Sorry about that.
We get passionate about Iowa football here.
I just want to see the under of 28.5 hit. So bad.
That is so embarrassing. Like, that should come with NCAA penalties. If you can't, like, a combined under of 30, are you kidding me?
Should there be a federal warning on the
Yes.
like on a pack of cigarettes?
Yes.
This could be harmful.
No,
to
it should
your
be like
health.
it should be like the show Nip Tuck right before it starts. This show very graphic, MA-17 or whatever those ratings are.
We need a warning out there. Protect the children.
To cause against depression, don't watch this game. Okay, all right.
God.
That was day 3 of my mustache look, guys.
It's looking good. Keep it going, man.
Does it look good?
Yeah, keep
Looks
it
a
going.
lot like day 2.
See, I'm not going to take shots. I'm encouraging you.
I'm not offended. What is that going to hurt my feelings for? I've known I can't grow facial hair my whole life. Like, what is that? Oh, I'm so offended by that
I
comment.
kind of want you to add a soul patch to it. Can you do a soul patch?
I
Just
think I
being
can grow it
honest.
right here
I want a
and then
mustache
chin hair.
Okay, I want a mustache and a soul patch.
I can't connect it, though. I can't get the
No.
hairy hair.
Connection is
hairs.
key. You got to be able to connect it.
I'm just being honest.
Well, I had somebody in college. I grew out a mustache in like mid-November, trying to do the Movember thing.
Yes.
I participated with that, and they called me a chimo, and I didn't know what that meant at the time, and I had to look it up.
It's not good.
Swag, you know what a chimo
I
is?
don't. I have not heard that particular euphemism.
Somebody that lurks around schools with minivans with no
Gotcha.
windows.
I understand. Okay.
I still can't believe he asked earlier if I'm cleaning and jerking to this music. I cannot believe that was asked at 6:19.
That was a little extreme.
Just out of left field completely.
Music had me fired up. I was ready to go. It's Football
He's
Friday.
ready to start lifting.
Let's go!
I had a couple looks yesterday. I got done with the gym, went to Costco, quick Costco run, and sometimes you get like the Happy Valley moms, midday Happy Valley moms at Costco.
Yeah.
And I was
How's
getting
that scene?
Well, I was getting some looks, and like I had headphones on, and I felt good about those looks. And then I got in the car, I adjusted a mirror, and I went, "Oh yeah, I have the most disgusting mustache on my face."
It's not that bad.
They weren't staring at me; they were staring at that thing on my lip.
Yeah.
Nah, you're too
They're
self-deprecating.
looking
It's not
for
that
you
bad.
when they go pick up their kids at school later in the afternoon.
Just let the record be known. This is a spite mustache. This is not me going for a new look, a midlife crisis.
What are we?
My children. This is a big middle finger to my family. You stop calling me ugly. I will make myself uglier if you so challenge me. And here I am, day 3.
I think the earrings need to go back in. I think we add that to the mix with the mustache.
Did you have
Now we're talking.
studs or hoops?
I had fake diamonds. Cubics.
Just like Marcus Camby.
He had fake ones?
Yeah, he
Good for him.
Yeah, he had these big old rocks. I remember being in a locker room one time. He's like, "No, I'm not stupid."
Dude, thank you. Marcus Camby, get him on the show. We need to talk to him. 2 things that people stupidly spend their money on. Diamond chain or gold necklaces. This is fake, by the way, so go ahead and steal it. It's $15 on Amazon. And real diamond earrings. Always go cubic zirconium.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you want them? Here you go. $8 mall.
He also implemented the back of the hand high five, which is an underutilized thing.
Germaphobe.
Yeah, it's keep the germs away.
USC is at Oregon this weekend, guys.
Yep.
I was really excited for this game 8 weeks ago, and here I am.
Not as excited?
Well, I'm still curious to watch Caleb run around and the defense tackling him, and how many points can they score on the Oregon defense? Because Oregon has been susceptible to good passing attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they have.
I think Texas Tech would be it, but Texas Tech had success airing it out. UW obviously did too. I'm more curious how that battle's going to go. I have zero questioning or doubt of Oregon's offense against USC's defense. That's like not even a conversation to me because I know they're scoring at least 35 on that defense.
Yeah, I would say I would probably more so use Washington State than Texas Tech as a team that put up a lot of yards on
too,
Oregon.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I think Cam Ward threw for like 400 yards in that game, and they moved the ball. That was a good Cam Ward performance. He showed up that weekend, and for whatever reason hasn't been able to do it in other weekends. Texas Tech to me was more penalties and kind of dumb, just stupid plays. And God, thank God they won that game. Washington definitely had a lot of success throwing the ball down the field. If there is an area that you can capitalize on Oregon's defense, we talked about it yesterday. It's unquestionably their secondary. I don't really know if that's so much of an Oregon problem or more of like, that's just college football, dude. These offenses are really good. The quarterback play in this conference is really good. Like, you're not going to shut everybody down. And it's a reality going into this game. USC's going to score some points. They're going to move the ball. Caleb Williams is going to make some big plays. I think the 2 things that concern me most about this game, first and foremost, it is Caleb Williams. He is one of the best players in the sport, if not the best player in the sport. There's this narrative out there that he's having a down year. It's not true. He's had 1 bad game against Notre Dame. You're allowed to have a bad game. He doesn't get the benefit of when he has a bad game, somebody else picks him up because his defense is terrible, and their offensive line at times has been a problem. So Caleb Williams scares me because he has the ability in a close, tight game to make plays and to extend and to use his legs, and he's incredibly athletic and he's incredibly accurate. So that's the concerning part. The other thing that concerns me about this game is just the sheer pressure factor. Like we talked about this earlier. USC can come out all they want and say, we still can play for the X, Y, and Z, and we still got all this stuff on the line. It's like, yeah, technically you're not wrong, but you also need Utah to lose again. You need Oregon State to not win out. You need to beat UCLA. Like, there's a lot of different caveats to that. They are going into this game, I think, with a mindset of, we got nothing to lose. And Oregon has everything to lose.
As they should, by the way. And they should be taking this game personal because Oregon's been in this relationship.
They've dominated USC.
It's been Oregon, Oregon, Oregon.
They have dominated USC for a long time, since Pete Carroll, the end of the Pete Carroll tenure, really. And so that's the concern that I have, is that you find yourself in a tight game. One of those dumb turnovers happens. I don't know if you guys didn't watch it last night. Louisville is a top 11 team in the country. They went to Virginia.
Yeah.
They were up big. All of a sudden, you get a pick six. And then on the very next drive, Louisville fumbles, and it's a scoop and score.
Yeah.
Just like that, it's 14 points. And you're like, oh, my God, are we going to lose this game? And the team that's ranked higher with 1 loss that has playing for something, they're the ones that are going to feel the pressure, not the other sideline. And so if you're asking me for concerns, it's just how do you handle the pressure of knowing that we're 3 weeks away from playing for something, and then Caleb Williams is a nightmare to try and game plan and stop.
Here's Dan Lanning. He was on with Isaac and Sue, because he is every Thursday at 4 o'clock. And it's a good conversation that we always encourage you to check out at the Service Patriots podcast. Service Patriots, by the way, as I delay reading here, check out the latest special offers for the listeners, for you, everybody out there. ServicePatriots.com/thefan to get some special offers. Dan Lanning asked about Caleb Williams, and he had this to say about the quarterback.
Caleb is a guy that can make every single throw. Probably doesn't get enough credit for how strong his lower body strength is. He's not a guy that goes down easy, and he's much faster than people realize as well. His scramble ability is impressive. Things that I think make him really different is how long he can hold on to the ball. and find explosive plays. The last guy that I really went against that was similar to that was Joe Burrow when he was at LSU. He's a guy that didn't go down easy, could hold on to the ball for a long time, and then he had really good weapons to be able to throw the ball too. So, Caleb's obviously a special player. He's definitely got great arm strength, and it's hard to outrun his arm. So he's looking to make the big play consistently, and they've done a good job of that this season.
Who's doing the Trump nose breathing thing?
Somebody was.
Is that you guys?
That was not me. No.
Oh,
That was not me.
somebody's like,
That was on the clip. Somebody was breathing heavy into that thing.
Was it soup, maybe?
I don't know. I just,
Foaming at the mouth. He loves
My
the
mic
answer.
was off there.
once I heard it, I couldn't stop hearing it.
I stopped breathing because I was like, "Is that me?"
I was like looking at
I'm
dirt.
like, no,
like,
I can still hear it. It's not me.
I love that answer.
Yeah, and I'll be curious when you guys talk to Anthony on the pregame show. When you're getting prepared for coverages, does knowing a guy is likely back there 5 or 6 seconds, how does that change? Do you go more man? Do you go more zone? What do you do to change up your schemes to try to prepare for that, knowing you might have to cover guys 7, 8 seconds down the field all over the place?
I would compare Caleb Williams to, like, when you get one of those flies that's in your house and you just can't get it. Like, you're swinging at it, you can't get it, and you end up getting really frustrated, and you feel like punching a hole in your wall because there's just that one fly, and you just can't.
And then eventually he hides.
And then he
knows where to
hides.
hide, and you can't see
Yes,
him.
and then he pops out. You're like folding laundry, and he's like, "Oh, there he is!" That's Caleb Williams, and I think there's a challenge for defenders of keeping your emotions in check, because if you watch, he is like a Houdini in the pocket, and he's a Houdini when he runs the football.
Not really in the pocket so much. It's just he's a Houdini.
His ability to avoid contact, to avoid hits, to like do the sneaky sideline stuff. If I'm going out of bounds, psych, here's a spin move, and I'm going to pick up 6 more yards. Like,
right.
I think there's a real frustration there that builds as the game goes on. If there's one area that you can capitalize, if there's one weakness of Caleb Williams, it is at times his pocket presence is not great in terms of he'll just kind of retreat, and take a big sack. That lost USC the game this weekend. They had a drive. They were down by 3 going on the 20, 25-yard line, wherever they were. It was a 3rd down after a holding call, and he took a sack that lost him like 17 yards and kicked him out of field goal range, and they had a punt, and then Washington, of course, scored on the next drive because USC can't stop anybody. So he'll take bad sacks. The other thing that he is really bad at is protecting the football.
Ball control. He fumbles a lot.
Fumbles a ton. And when you look at that game, USC does not have the benefit of the doubt because their defense is terrible. The fumble and the sack ended up being the difference in that game.
They were up 7 at that point.
Exactly. Washington's defense made 2 big plays in that game. It was similar to the Oregon game where they weren't great, but they made the plays when they needed to. And so get your hands on footballs and don't get frustrated because he is going to frustrate you.
I want to bring something over on Oregon SC. We'll get to UW and Utah. I'm very interested to see how that game is going to go in Seattle, despite the quarterback situation at Utah. We'll touch on Oregon State at Stanford. We got some NFL stuff to get into. We'll Sprague the line at 8:30. Dirt and Sprague back with more on The Fan.
Oregon Ducks football. This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
Giannis Antetokounmpo became the first player in NBA history to lose a game with 50 points, 75% field goal percentage, and 10 rebounds in the game.
You see what kicks he was rocking?
He did. Hello.
Hello. Go Ducks.
Nobody's giving us a chance, though.
Nobody's giving us a shot, man.
Built, not bought.
Everybody's sleeping on us this year. Nobody's giving us the
Oh,
opportunity.
flash, no substance.
Look, we bring our lunch pail week in and week out. We get the job done, okay? We work hard. This ain't about clicks, okay? We talk with our helmet. That's what we do around here.
I just have such a hard time getting as excited for USC-Oregon as I am Utah-UW because I think Utah's defense can make things a little uncomfortable for UW, and I think the run game will be back for the Utes because the Huskies' defense is susceptible to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's hard for me, Dirt, is like famous last words here on a Football Friday because you preview things too hard and then you look stupid come Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Just the defense basically doesn't exist in my brain against the Oregon offense, and so it's like, yeah, Caleb this and Caleb that. If you don't score every possession, I just don't see a world where that game is close. But you're quick to point out and fair to point out, college football sometimes doesn't make sense and can be stupid.
This sport does not make sense.
So we'll see. The weather's going to be crappy, which is another, for me.
Oh, I disagree.
What?
It's going to be delightful.
Well, yeah, from your vantage point, but this is kind of my point. SC, Arizona State.
Oh, sure.
Anytime it's
warm
cold,
weather.
wet. Yeah, I just don't feel like those kids want to play in that stuff. So I don't know. I'd be mildly surprised and happy if this game is within a 10-point margin.
Can I just, this might be a good legal ID line. November cold weather football makes me horny. Like cold weather, you can see your breath. You know the stakes are high because of the time of year. I am all about it. I've seen people complaining about the Oregon fan, like, I don't know if I want to go sit on the cold weather. Like, oh, shut up. All right, 7:30 games, that's fair. You can say I don't want to get home at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's fine. But you also haven't had any night games all year, so you got nothing to complain about. Like, dude, this is football. It's football. We live in Oregon. It's cold here. It's November. You're gonna see your breath. You got to wear gloves and a beanie. It's gonna be great. I can't wait.
What's the player you see in your mind when I tell you, like, smoke breath is coming out? Because I'm seeing Butkus.
Walter Payton.
Look at us, two bears. The monsters of the Midway. I'm seeing
frozen tundra.
Lambeau Field.
Yes, see, that's football. It's football. It's an
should be-
outdoor sport.
Yeah, we should be putting domes on these stadiums, though. Like, let's do climate control here.
Dude,
and-
I can't wait, man. I've been watching that forecast all week. I'm a sideline guy. I don't even know if I have a seat in the press box this year, and definitely not this weekend.
I hate the press box. It's the most pretentious area of any game.
I'm down with the people. I'm on the sideline, everybody's shouting and yelling, and everybody's drunk, and I that feeling. So I've been eyeing the weather forecast. Looks like you're going to get some rain early in the day.
There'll be a bunch of them. Did you see the party bus supply on the
no.
in the kitchen?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's for the party bus?
I'm assuming that's for the party
I
bus.
should unload
yes.
my car and put that stuff back.
Oops. Thought it was like take one, leave one kind of
That's
thing.
kind of what I thought, yeah.
We don't pay you a lot, so here's a nice little gift for you on
My
a
quick
Friday.
math, there's 200 cans of carbonated beverage for the party bus. I hope that's for both ways. That might just be for the ride down.
Yeah, it could be.
They might be restocking.
It's going to get sideways on Saturday night, and I can't wait, man. That atmosphere is going to be awesome.
I think it will be awesome. The late game element I'm not a big fan of, but I'm also old, washed, and don't like to be up till 11 o'clock at night.
It's also, you're not wrong. I'm with you 100%. The benefit is the atmosphere because you have all day to get drunk, not just 3 hours to get drunk. And so
that's not always a good thing.
Not always a good thing. No, something bad could happen. I don't disagree with that. But the volume of crowds, the later you go in the day, there's like a scientific study on it.
You do need to pace yourself, or you need to have the ability in your vehicle or something to take a nap and rally if you're going to get going early.
If the Ducks are up 20 or more points in the third quarter, I'm turning the game off and I'm DVRing it, and I'll wake up and see what happened. And if I need to rewatch the end of it, great. If I don't, then I'll be like, I made the best choice.
Is there another Pac-12 After Dark game this weekend?
Yes.
Who's the other one?
I think it's the UCLA game. Let me check real quick.
Hold on, I'll pull it up. I got it right here. You have 6 o'clock, Arizona State, UCLA. Like, yeah, no,
that does nothing for me.
No thanks. I'm out on that one.
I know Dillingham has like done some things this year that have been good and interesting. You say Arizona State out loud, and there's nothing about that team that makes me want to watch.
No, another offensively challenged team that when they ran into a legitimate defense, we saw what happened in Salt Lake City last week. That thing got ugly.
Well, how do you think the Utes are going to respond from that beatdown going to Seattle? The Huskies, 9.5-point favorites in this one. What's your kind of overall read?
I think the easiest mistake that anybody could make is looking at Oregon and Utah and thinking that's the way that this game, like, well, Oregon beat them this way, Washington beat Oregon, therefore 1 + 1 = 2, and that's how this game is going to go. I don't think that's the case. I also don't think if Oregon and Utah play 10 times that Oregon wins the game 35-6 every time. They played a really good game, man. That was probably the best that they have looked all year, maybe the best they've looked in a long time. Everything clicked, and it was a really good performance from them.
Portland State would like a word.
Well,
They scored 81 points.
We're talking about big boy football here. So that was one of the best games that they've had in a long time, and you're not winning that game 35-6 10 out of 10 times. So don't make that mistake. Utah showed, I think, in the bounce-back effort, they just beat Arizona State. I know it's Arizona State with their dysfunctional offense and a third-string quarterback. That was the largest margin of victory they've had in their entire tenure in the Pac-12. There's been a lot of good Utah teams. That's the biggest margin of victory that they have ever had. Washington is coming off of an emotional, knockdown, drag-out fight that went down to the final seconds on the road late at night against USC, and now you got to come home and you got to get up for a team that's going to punch you in the mouth over and over and over and over again. If I'm Utah, I'm going in with the game plan of, can you stop the run? And if you can't, we're going to control the clock. That's our game. We'll throw in a trick play here or there.
Sure.
We're going to run the football. We're going to make you be physical. We're going to make you play defense at the line of scrimmage. And if you can't do it, we're going to shorten this game with possession times, and we're going to make you a little uncomfortable.
It's so cliche, but sometimes the cliches actually are the thing to highlight. If Utah is going to put the pressure on Penix, this is an uncomfortable game for Washington, if not an outright upset for Utah. Utah is third right now in sacks.
Yep.
They get to the quarterback. Jonah Ellis has had a great – I just saw Field Yates tweet about him the other day about how, as a prospect, he's really put his name on NFL scout circles. We talked to Bill Riley before the year, and he said he thought this could be their best defense ever. And I'm kind of with you on the Oregon. I think Oregon is better than Utah. Rice Eccles at night versus Rice Eccles in the morning is a different environment, and Oregon took full advantage. I'm not discrediting the Ducks' win there.
Nobody's giving us a chance.
Chip on the shoulder. But Oregon, I thought, did some things in the UW game despite the outcome. I thought Oregon was kind of getting to him in that second half, making the ball get released quicker. Sometimes I think what Washington does, and it's hard to criticize a coach that's had the start that Kalen DeBoer has had, I think sometimes they throw it too much. I know that's crazy to say out loud. Penix is awesome. The receivers are amazing. But like in the second half of that Oregon game, I just didn't feel like they were taking down opportunities to run the football to help things a little bit.
The run game was massive for them in the first half of the Oregon game.
But Dylan Johnson getting 100 yards on the ground is maybe the most underrated part of that win for them. And so, are they going to do that against Utah? Or are they going to get stuck being pass happy every possession? Sometimes that bites you. And I think if they can get pressure to Penix, that's a big number, 9.5. I think this is a really close football game. Penix gets all the time in the world, much like he did a week ago
they'll let him
against
up,
USC. He'll move the ball on anybody.
One of the funniest stat breakdowns that you could do of the entire, this sport is so stupid, and I love it so much. This is the same football team, okay? I'm going to read two different stat lines at you. As a team, 42 carries for 316 yards, 7.5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. It's a team. Same team, 13 carries for 13 yards, 1 yard per carry. Same team. Within the span of 3 weeks. That was Washington against Arizona State and Washington against USC. Same team. Yeah. They ran for 300. Arizona State did not have a very good defense. They ran for 13 yards. USC has a horrible defense, and they ran for 316 yards on them.
That is a wild stat to hear out loud.
3 weeks apart. That's not like last year to this year. It's not week 1 to week 11. That is like 2 weeks ago to last week.
Well, but you highlight,
bananas.
I think what you highlight there is not just a rush and yards per carry difference, Dirt. What was the total carries against USC?
Total carries as a team was 42.
Okay.
Dylan Johnson had 26 for 256.
Look, he was running at 11 yards a clip. He was getting a first down every time he ran, so I get it.
And they had 13 carries. They threw the ball 42 times in that ASU game, ran at 13.
And that's what I'm talking about is, do you up the 13 against a good defense and go to 17, 18, 19, maybe 20?
Yeah.
Because I just feel like that's where UW tends to get in a little bit of trouble. Again, they're undefeated. We're nitpicking. But it is something to follow with Utah's defense specifically. Are you going to try to have that balance? But if Utah shuts it down early,
Right, do you become one-dimensional? That's always the fear with Washington's offense.
That is why Washington, to me, is more open to having close games against common opponents versus a team like Oregon.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this is one thing that Oregon did in that Utah game that I do think Washington should take note of. Oregon is always a defer the ball. We want to win the middle eight, get the ball to start the second half. If you watch the cinematic recap of the game, Lanning said we would have received the ball if we won the kickoff, and that was the only game that I think they would probably do that in. And the main reason they would is because the mentality is, if you get up on Utah, their offense is not built to throw them back into a football game.
Playing catch-up is a harder thing for them.
It's very difficult for them to do.
That's a good point.
And so Oregon came out. They didn't have to because Utah won the toss. They deferred, so Oregon got the ball first. And what did they do immediately? Touch just right down the field. And everybody's like, oh, wow, that was quick and easy. And just like that, you put Utah on their heels. I think the start in this game is massive for Washington. If you can come out and build a 17-point lead in the second quarter, like, dude, the game's over. Utah might be able to shorten it, make it tight, maybe cover a spread. They're not going to erase that deficit and win against a Washington offense. So if you can get off to a good start, I think you can settle a lot of those nerves down. If you look up and this is like midway through the second quarter and this is like a 13-10 game, kind of ugly, running the football, not a lot of big plays, I think that's when that uncomfortable feeling kicks in.
We've got Jorgie hopping on at 8:15 today. Get his thoughts on the Oregon-USC matchup and how he feels the Ducks have responded since the UW loss. So he'll join us at 8:15. We'll Sprague the line at 8:30, so get those Sprague the line sponsors in to the Vancouver Ford text line 503-864-6326. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them for more info at vancouverford.com. Of course, you can also put Sprague the line comments into the comment section of our YouTube page as well, youtube.com/1080 The Fan. We have a lot to get into. We roll on a Football Friday. Dirt and Sprague back with more, but first, Swag with the Sports Update.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by 808 Hawaiian Restaurant. Enjoy some Kahlua Pig Terry Chicken, even an island cocktail at Burnside Woodstock, or order online at ate-oh-ate.com. First on the Fan, Ducks Beavers, both on this weekend, trying to keep their opportunity to play in the Pac-12 title game alive. Number 6, Oregon, hosting a reeling USC squad, no longer ranked. They've lost 3 of their last 4. It's a 7:30 kick at Autzen. You'll hear it on the Fan with live pregame coverage from Eugene beginning at 3 p.m. Ducks 14.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. Number 12, Oregon State is 20.5-point favorites over Stanford in Corvallis Saturday. It is a 2:30 kick on the Pac-12 Network. While number 5, Washington, tries to stay undefeated, hosting number 18, Utah, 12:30 kick on Fox 12. Oregon Huskies 9.5-point favorites. ESPN's Pete Thamel reporting that the attorney for Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh says he fully expects his client and the head coach of the Wolverines to be on the airplane leaving this afternoon to go to Penn State, despite reports that the Big Ten could announce a response, including punishment, to the Wolverines for the sign-stealing allegations. College hoops tonight right here on the Fan. The Oregon Ducks hosting the Montana Grizzlies for their home opener at Matt Knight Arena. 6 o'clock tip. We'll have pregame coverage at 5:30 following primetime. Ducks 16.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
The original home of the Herd with Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, welcome back in. A little college football fight song Friday for you. Been bouncing around. I do want to get to the Beavers in a moment. I'm going to read a thought from a Beaver fan, too, that I quite enjoyed. We are live on YouTube as we are every single morning now. You can watch the show there. We got a comment section that's going. People are talking about aliens. And,
On the comment section?
well, it was commented from Joel, who's a Husky fan, said if you were an alien that just touched down in their UFO and you turned on this radio show, you would think UW had 3 losses as opposed to having a chance at the greatest season
Really?
in Pac-12 history. And here's what my response would be. Now, I am a noted
You're wearing an Oregon sweatshirt, so.
nobody's giving us a chance. But here's what I would say to a Husky fan. Like, first off, I get the sentiment where every fan base does stuff like that. But also, like, let's not refuse to acknowledge that they have played 3 straight tight games. Is that a fact? So, like, this notion of, like, entertaining the idea that Utah and Washington is a close game, it's the same way we talked about Oregon going into Salt Lake City. It's the same conversation we had going in. You got to get up on them early. They're a tough physical team.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Whittingham's the best coach in the conference. I don't even know if it's close. Like, or we're not sleeping on them. Like, we thought if Oregon gets up, they got a chance to pull away because their defense can take over, and Utah can't throw their way back into the game. But I would never go into a game against Utah not entertaining the idea that Utah has the ability to keep it close.
Well, but I think to the comment specifically, though, to highlight the fact that a team who has had so far the dream season,
Undefeated, man.
I would add being absolutely railroaded out of the playoff ranking right now. They should not be 5th. They should be ahead of
Agreed.
Michigan and Florida State. Their resume's better.
Brought that up on Wednesday.
But even despite that, I think you got to also be fair. And so while Joel might see an Arizona State-Stanford game followed by the USC game and have a takeaway of, well, tight games happen in college football,
Yeah, absolutely do.
he would be right. But we got to highlight that. We can't.
Yeah, I'm not just going to put blinders on and say
I-
you're blowing everybody out and nobody's ever going to touch the Huskies and you're perfect.
Well,
and
but
it's just not the reality.
I would also say, like, what do you think the conversation would be if Oregon got stuck in a dogfight and needed a pick 6 to beat Arizona State this weekend?
Yes. You think we would just say Oregon's going to steamroll everybody and they're the best team in the conference?
Dirt would. I wouldn't. I mean,
I would not. I would have an emotional meltdown if that happened
Well,
next weekend.
but I think we would highlight the difficulty of winning in college football, but paired with, man, that's a massive disappointment in performance from a team who, yes, won, but way underperformed the expectation. What was that spread? Wasn't it 26.5?
Somewhere in that range.
And it took a pick 6 at the very end and a very, very questionable penalty pickup
DPI.
to beat ASU at home. So, like, I can understand from a Husky diehard angle how it all sounds like we're just making it sound like UW has 3 losses. I didn't have that takeaway against USC.
No.
But I also think it's very fair to highlight the team that's number 1 in the conference has looked a little beat up / not quite themselves since they've beaten Oregon.
And I've gone through that. Like, I go through this every week as an Oregon fan where I push back on you saying this is their best chance and you do a lot of that stuff with the Ducks. And I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I also just view college football, and maybe this is just the heartbreak that's happened to me over the years. Like, I'm always on the lookout for the landmine. Where's the land? There's a landmine out there.
Me too.
Can you avoid it?
I was worried about Utah, Oregon State, and you were like, don't be worried. I'm like, I'm deathly afraid. And I didn't need to be worried because they won the game comfortably.
So there was a text that came in, and I chuckled at it because I think there's a sentiment there, and it's I believe from a Beaver fan, I'm assuming, saying, I hope Utah takes the Huskies to the brink and then loses, allowing for a tired and beat up Washington team to travel to the snake pit that is Reeser next week. How are my beat? Oh, there it is. There it
at
is.
that game, by the way.
Next week, 4:30 kick, ABC.
Please don't be bad weather.
It probably will be, but that's okay.
Cold, I can deal with.
Yeah,
The
just don't
rain
be
and the
pouring.
cold
Don't be
makes it
pouring.
so much worse, man.
Are we viewing a trap? Are we confident? Stanford's not very good. How do we feel about the Beavs this weekend?
Well, Io Manor needs to be double teamed every single play.
I don't know if I can name. Actually, that's not true. Filkins, I know because
Yeah?
he's a local kid.
Well, he's been on that team for 8 years.
He has.
Daniels, the quarterback, right? Ashton
Yeah.
Daniels.
Yes.
Uh,
Can we name a 4th Stanford Cardinal?
No. There was a guy at Pac-12 Media Day. What was his name?
That linebacker.
Io Manor.
Yes, Io Manor.
The Io Manor of the defense and the Io
Sure.
Manor of the... Am I worried? No. They should win this game going away. Just, do what you need to do. That's all I ask. Don't give up massive down the field plays. I thought underrated part of Lanning's interview yesterday was him being asked about if he watches NFL on Sundays, and he said no, because we still work on Sundays. But what he did acknowledge, and I loved this, he said that he watches the explosive plays all through the NFL and college. He has some system or person or peoples that put together huge conjoined like clips from all of the games of just the explosive plays, because he basically wants to steal. He's picking his
Smart.
picking the brains of everybody else, saying what our personnel, what we can do.
Yeah.
I love that. No, I haven't wanted to talk about this game much. I think Stanford's incredibly boring. I don't think they're an interesting topic. And I don't see a world where Stanford goes into Reser Stadium and wins. And if they do,
Yeah, you could entertain the notion if you're on the road. Of
wow.
The road roast thing.
It's going to be a very interesting conversation if Stanford beats Oregon State at Reser. I'll tell you that much.
I think the only concern that you have, if there is any concern, is that it just are you looking ahead? Are you just not paying attention to Stanford at all because of what lies? Like next week has the chance to be one of the big. I mean, this will be the first time. I don't mean this. People, I don't know. Hopefully, don't get offended by this. College game day's been to Oregon State one time,
And it was for the other team.
it wasn't for them.
No.
It was for Oregon trying to finish an undefeated season.
Oregon State was terrible that year.
They are, if this goes through and game day goes there next weekend, they are as equally responsible for this college game day as Washington, because Oregon State will likely be in the top 10 depending on how everything shakes out this weekend. Penn State could lose, Ole Miss could lose. You could have a lot of teams tumble in front of you.
Yeah.
And that could bump you up into the top 10. You're as equally like that is one of the biggest weekends of Oregon State football history.
Yeah.
I don't mean to like over proportion it, but that's a massive deal.
Let's not.
And so that's the only concern that I have, is that are you so focused on what's to come in the next 2 weeks, being Washington at home, game day maybe, ABC primetime, Civil War obviously the next week, and you go into it sleepwalking and Stanford bites it because Stanford is playing loose and free with nothing to lose, right? So that's the only concern I have.
Yeah, what I would say to that, though, is like that's still not a reason to have look ahead. All of what you laid out is fair. It's not a reason to look ahead. You haven't been home, as you noted on Thursday, in a month.
It's been a month since you played a home game.
Yeah, there's going to be a natural fired up feeling coming out of that. Explosions come out of the tunnel. There's orange lights flashing everywhere. There's not going to be a reason to come out of that stadium and go, well, who cares about that other team? Like, yeah, you want to play UW. You want the stakes to be high. You want game day there. Handle your business. You haven't been home in a month. Like, that. There's no world where if anybody was the coach of Oregon State, Jonathan Smith's probably already had this speech with him. There's not a world where he hasn't said, guys, there is no look ahead. We have to win this weekend.
Yeah, because then the things that you want to play for in the final 2 weeks of the season will not exist if you don't take care of business this weekend. Game day's probably not coming if you lose. You're out of the Pac-12 title race, right? You don't have the chance to be that spoiler in the upset. So that is a 2:30 kick on the Pac-12 network. Weather's supposed to be, I think, nice in Corvallis in the middle of the afternoon tomorrow. A little chilly. The spread is 20.5. So there you go. Oregon State taking on Stanford tomorrow. Let's get to a couple other thoughts in the college football world. Did we get a glimpse last night of what is to come this weekend? We'll get to that coming up next on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainsplumbing.com.
It's just execution, just carrying stuff, the week to week. But just from my standpoint, being better with everything, being more accurate, getting through things faster, making better decisions, figuring out managing situations better. It's all encompassing.
Struggle bus rookie year for Bryce Young there. They lose to the Bears last night. Fewest yards per attempt in first 8 starts. He is number 1 all-time NFL history, 5.38 yards ahead of Steve Bartkowski in Atlanta.
That was such bad football last night. Everybody deserves the award for stinking it up. Offensive football was nowhere to be found, but somehow we all three watched the entire game. That's the power of the NFL.
You know who's stinking it up? Frank Reich, you idiot. Go for it on 4th down. Don't kick a 60-yard field goal. That's brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Make plumbing and electrical services delightful. Get your time back. Let the pros tackle whatever projects you need completed. Schedule an appointment online. Three Mountains Plumbing. That's threemountainsplumbing.com.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
All right, we'll talk to Mike Jorgensen coming up at 8:15. We will Sprague the line at 8:30, so get those fake sponsors in, folks. The YouTube comment section has turned into a cesspool. I apologize. Everybody's arguing with everybody now.
Well,
Everybody's
let's all
yelling at
argue
everybody.
together. You know,
Everybody's
sometimes
yelling.
it brings people together to argue.
Well, the counter argument now has been, with mentioning Washington has not looked great the last couple of weeks. Somebody said, well, what does covering the spread have to do with anything? It doesn't have anything to do with anything. They could not cover any spread the rest of the way and go undefeated. Nobody's saying that can't happen. But when you don't beat teams the way that we assume you're going to beat them, people are going to wonder what's wrong. Why aren't you playing up to your level? Because we saw early in the year, Washington was an absolute machine, man. Like, go look at their lines early in or not lines, but final scores early in the season, and the way they just blew teams out. It was unbelievable. And the counter argument has now been, well, let's talk about the Texas Tech game where Oregon was lucky to win. I mean, we did the week after. Oregon did not play great. They were lucky as hell to win in Lubbock. And I think the takeaway from that game was if Oregon plays like that, you're going to be in trouble this year. If that's the way that you're going to play in some of your tougher games, that's going to be a problem. You got away with it one time. Don't make that a habit, because in college football, weird things can happen when you allow teams that aren't as good as you to hang around and the pressure builds as the season goes on. So nobody left the Texas Tech game saying Oregon's going to blow everybody out and they're fine. But the question was, they were lucky to win. Now, is that the way you're going to play, or is that your one-off game where you play down the competition?
Well, but if they beat Utah by a field goal or more, I'm not going to come in Monday and be like, oh, man, the Huskies are in trouble. Utah's a really respected program.
Yes,
and
they
team.
are.
I would highlight, though, to make it fair, okay, maybe the spread stuff we bring up a lot. We're degenerates with the NFL gambling stuff. We admit that.
Mm-hmm.
We do highlight it mainly just to say, hey, this is kind of what the odds and numbers say the difference is, right? So, like, if I highlight the gap between Arizona State, Washington, if UW wins that game by 20, I'm not coming in panicked. It was more the way the game played out. It's the same stuff. I've been fair about this. I've done this to Ohio State all year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in on Ohio State the way maybe other people are. I think their quarterback sucks. They've been in some dogfights they have no business being in dogfights in. Talent-wise, defensively, and at skill positions on offense, they should have been blowing teams out like Rutgers, like Wisconsin. And yes, some of the final scores indicate blowout. But if you watch those games, it's a struggle bus for about 2.5 to 3 quarters.
Yep.
And I've noted that too.
And we've done it with Florida State as well. Florida State's played down to a lot of competition this year. And they don't have the quality win that Washington has.
It might be their undoing is playing down to their opponents all season long. They have Miami this weekend, and I think they'll win because Miami's changing quarterbacks. But it's a rivalry game, too. And if you don't think Mario's intense now, I mean, he's probably even more tense all week. So I think we need to kind of ignore some of the bitching and moaning of people saying we're being unfair to their teams. I'm fair to everybody, including my own team. If it doesn't look great, I'm going to say it. Yeah. If it does, you give them the credit and you move on.
Yeah, I don't cocky sniff in college football with 3 weeks to go is my advice, because you never know what the hell's going to happen, and it's a sport that can humble you very quickly.
I tried to bait you twice this week. You just
I'm
wouldn't.
not taking the bait at all,
You're
dude.
a big mouse bass just way down there. You had no interest in that fake
I'm
worm.
Swimming around your hook, man. I'm not going anywhere near that thing. Speaking of upsets, talk about the college football slate this weekend. So we already kind of got to the Michigan-Penn State game. You think Michigan's going to roll? I think there's a chance there. I think Penn State has an opportunity. All the stuff going on around Michigan, the home field advantage being at Beaver Stadium. I like Penn State's chances this weekend.
My thing isn't about Franklin. It's not even about like the offense. It's just mainly like Aller against that defense does not leave me very hopeful.
Totally get it. Let's take a look at some of the other chances for upsets, because I do think there's a lot of them this weekend, and we've been kind of waiting. We've been close. Oklahoma has now fallen, so we've seen one team get toppled. Will we see others? You mentioned Florida State. They're at home against Miami. 12:30 game on ABC. It's a 2-touchdown spread. To the note on Florida State, rivalry game 1, so always be careful with those. And they have had near miss after near miss. Like, the Duke final score is really misleading. Riley Leonard got hurt in that game, and Florida State looked like crap in the first half. They eventually pulled away. They had the Boston College game earlier this year that they were somewhat fortunate to win. Pitt last week, they sleptwalked through that game. It was a 10-7 game at half, and Pitt is terrible this year. And so I don't really know what to make of Florida State. I was high on them, obviously, coming into the year. I think their quarterback and wide receiver duo is solid, and Trey Benson is a stud. But there's an aspect of the ACC is so bad, and they're eking out wins that I don't know why they're kind of getting the benefit of the doubt, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if this is a dogfight in Tallahassee this weekend.
I'm going through it right now, and I was looking at some of this stuff for the show. I was trying to remind myself, I used to love this game. Florida
It's
State.
one of the.
Miami.
It used to be one of the biggest rivalries every year.
It really was.
Wide right, all those highlights, Bowden. Yeah.
When was the last time you would say this game had like it mattered? And even right now, Miami's not ranked.
No, probably 20 years ago.
They used to play. Didn't they used to play like opening weekend of the season?
Used to be
remember
earlier in the year, I
early
feel like.
in the
Yeah,
year.
there's a lot of Septembers.
Because
early
Miami didn't used to be in
Octobers.
the ACC. That was
No,
Big East
they were
Miami
Big East
days, and
Miami.
so it was a non-conference rivalry game. I think Florida State has won by double digits, like a crazy streak now, haven't they? I thought I saw that stat recently.
They've beaten Miami 2 straight years. Before
Okay.
that, Miami beat them
Okay.
52-10.
Oh, okay.
Miami
Touché.
won 27-10, 28-17, 24-20. I went back. 2013 is maybe the argument of you could say the last time this game mattered because you had number 3 Florida State against number 7 Miami in 2013, and that ended up being Seminoles 41-14.
Ooh. That would have been the Jimbo national title year.
Oh yeah, it would have been. Yeah,
2013, they won the national title.
But I mean, it's unfortunate to look at things like that and realize it's not a game that matters much in your life anymore, isn't it? When you lose a rivalry like that, and maybe this is the start of it. I'm not going to overlook Miami's chances here. They've got stout players. It's just they've struggled with quarterback play the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. You know what they're averaging turnover-wise per game this year? Average. Their average turnovers per game.
Enough to ban their defense from wearing a turnover chain.
They are averaging over 3 turnovers a game.
Yeah.
That's the average per game. If they just don't turn the ball over, they win. I mean, the Georgia Tech game was the dumpster fire. They turned it over, I want to say 5 times against North Carolina. Like, just stop turning the football over and you can win. If they do it, they got a great chance to pull off an upset. I also don't think we're talking about how bad the ACC is enough. That needs to be a bigger story in college football.
They kind of had a start of the Pac-12, and then they've kind of tumbled a little bit here, which,
Dude, that conference sucks, man.
It's not great.
Not good.
It's not good. I think most of the Big Ten is not good.
Yeah.
I think half of the SEC is awful. And, I think there's better teams top end in the Pac-12, despite what the rankings tell us.
I agree with you 100%. I got a couple more thoughts. Speaking of other upsets, do we sniff any? There's a lot of really good games this weekend and chances for upsets in college football. Ole Miss and Georgia are playing. Do we see anything there? Can Texas go down to TCU where they've had a really hard time winning for whatever reason? Is there an upset there? So we'll get in a little bit more notes on college football. I got a poll question to answer. Mike Jorgenson coming up at 8:15. We'll Sprague the line at 8:30. So get your fake sponsors in 503-864-6326. Loaded final hour. Don't go anywhere. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
The Vancouver Ford text line is 503-864-6FAN. This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
There's glory in the legends of this hard muscle life, and there's poetry in each season made of sweat and strife.
Dirt and Sprague on Football Friday.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app, follow 1080 The Fan, and enable push notifications to get the latest on the Ducks, Beavers, Blazers, and more.
All I know is you mess with me, you got problems.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, let's do this. Final hour, Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan, 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, and YouTube. Everybody's still yelling at each other. While you're there, make sure to subscribe to 1080 The Fan, our YouTube page, and like the video. We have 5 likes this morning. We're building, baby. Brick by brick. By brick by brick. Brick.
By brick?
By brick.
By brick.
We have 910 subscribers on our YouTube page.
Let's get to 1,000 in the next week or so.
Come on, people. We know you're watching, and we love you all. Keep arguing about resumes and who's good and who's bad, and it's great. That's what we love about sports.
Well, what's funny to me is sometimes we will, I don't want to use the word debate, we'll discuss the rankings, the playoff rankings, and how can this team be ahead of that team, and this team's done this, and that team's not done that. And from time to time, we'll get a text to be like, guys, none of this really matters because the season still has like 9 weeks left. And I acknowledge it, but it's funny when listeners say it to us, and then the comments start going, and it's like, well, my resume. What about my resume?
Michigan hasn't played anybody.
And you go, yeah, guys, this stuff is fun to talk about. We genuinely love this sport and stuff like this. So, like, hard to complain when people talk about it because you also talk about it.
This is how we love arguing about meaningless stuff. Somebody's arguing at the text line now that the ACC is not even that bad, and it's like, what are we doing? All right.
Not that bad, huh?
Yeah, somebody said it's an old take. They're actually not that bad this year. They only have 3 teams ranked in the top 25. One of them is North Carolina, who lost to Virginia.
Boston College, not good. Virginia Tech, not good.
Oh, it's not a good conference.
Pittsburgh's awful. Wake Forest is garbage. Yeah. Virginia's terrible. Syracuse hasn't won a conference game all year.
As compared to the other Power 5 conferences, it is easily the worst.
Ooh.
Yeah, I would take every other conference.
It's worse than the Big 12?
Yes.
Louisville, Florida State.
I think Texas, the combination
North Carolina are worse than the 3 you can name from the Big 12?
Well, I think Texas, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Oklahoma are better than basically everything in the ACC outside of Florida State.
Do you think Georgia Tech is a good team? If
No.
you just said no to that, then I have to remind you for the ACC, pro-ACC people, they are in 3rd place in that conference.
And they beat Miami, to which Anthony P1 said at the text line, Mario losing to Georgia Tech and beating Florida State would be the most Mario thing of all time.
That is Oregon Mario.
That's him right there. We beat Ohio State 2 weeks later. We lost to 3-9 Stanford.
He should jump at midfield. It's a me, a Mario. Lose to Tech in a game you should have won.
Oh,
Beat
God.
Florida State in a game you should have lost.
I love it. Let me ask the question. So we were getting into some of the upsets. I am very excited. I do look at this weekend. I think we're going to get one of those crazy. I don't know if it's this weekend. I don't know if it's next weekend. Like, we're due for a crazy Saturday where you're like, oh my God, how did that happen? We know that there will be a loser in Michigan, Penn State, so that game's off the limits. We know that there will be a loser in Georgia and Ole Miss. That game's off the limits. Most people feel like they know who's going to win those games, but you have top 10 teams-ish that are playing, so you will, of course, get those teams that lose. Is there anybody else that goes down this weekend? Do we have anybody else near the top that's circling the college football playoff wagon that's going to have the wheel fall off, if you will?
I'm kind of keeping a close eye at Alabama to see
on the road to Kentucky
how much they blow Kentucky out, or does Kentucky drag them down into the mud with their offense?
That line's only 11, which has been fishy to me all week.
Yeah, I think it's fair to ask why Texas Tech is only a 4-point dog with a backup quarterback at Kansas.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Especially Lance Leopold. I loved his comment. I don't know how true it'll be, but I love that he's like, I'm just going to stay at Kansas forever. And I would say you're making the right decision, Lance.
Yes, you are.
You make some of the top money in college football. I know you're not top 10 or anything, but you make great money.
No pressure.
Probably have all your house and stuff paid for. Zero pressure because it's a basketball school. I've been arguing this about Deion. Why leave? Why leave? If you're already succeeding there, the school is just going to give you all of the resources. Like, yeah, there are programs that are bigger and you got to leave, but there's only a couple of them. I don't think there's as many. So, like, why leave? I love that Lance Leopold's like, just stay in Lawrence.
Dude, I got a good gig. I built this thing up. Like, why would you want to go start over somewhere? Because if you're getting hired somewhere, it's at a place that needs to restart.
I don't know if I go much further than that. Because like Tennessee, Missouri, who cares? They're about the same kind of team.
The other ones I would throw at you, like
West Virginia at Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma's been stumbling lately. I don't know why they're favored by 2 touchdowns in that game. Their season is basically done. It's an uphill battle to get to the Big 12 title game.
And I'm not overlooking TCU.
That's the one a lot
doing
of people
it to
have identified.
Texas because they're going Malik Murphy because Quinn Ewers still hurt, and there's a lot of chatter on the old Orange Bloods message boards. Arch Manning might be eyeing transferring.
Ooh, they're concerned that he's not playing right away. Why is he transferring?
Well, it's just a rumor. It's just rumors that he's because this is I think the Murphy kid's also a freshman. I think he's a redshirt freshman.
He has not played very well.
He got off to a good start and then did not play well against Kansas State, and they somehow won that game. But
Arch will look great in Eugene next year.
I would actually circle a Lane train for Arch.
Oh, going to Ole Miss, huh?
You got the family tie, and Lane was like boombox out of his house professing love for that kid. So
yes, he was.
If he does transfer, I would be eyeing Ole Miss for him more than any other. Maybe Ohio State, but the point is TCU. And by the way, not that it's a massive upset that would change much. Florida could get LSU.
Yeah, I could see that
I think
for
Florida
sure.
can get LSU. Florida did not play a great game last weekend, and they got off to a rocky start that ultimately did them in against Arkansas, which cost them a top 25 ranking. I could see a natural bounce back here.
I'm excited, man. I hope we get one of those crazy, chaotic weekends of just not. When we go into weekends usually and we look for upsets, sometimes they don't happen. Sometimes in weekends where we say, nothing exciting is happening, that's the weekend that you get upsets. I just think we're due for one of them. I think we've been pretty close here the last couple of weeks. Ohio State's flirted with it a ton. We've mentioned Florida State. They've been flirting with it. Michigan finally plays a real opponent with a pulse this weekend. This is a big separation Saturday for me.
Yeah, you love it now, and you say that on the air unless your team's involved in it.
Unless my team loses, then I hate it and the sport's stupid, and I don't want to talk about college football next week.
Never
Okay?
forget 2007.
Hey, easy. I want to get to a poll question here. I threw this out last night, and I like doing these going into Fridays, looking at the lines for the weekend, and curious where people are at, because there's 2 big games in the Pac-12 this weekend. We've talked a lot about them on the show today. USC and Oregon tomorrow night, 7:30, right here on the Fan, and Washington and Utah. You got 2 ranked teams in the Pac-12 that'll go a long way in deciding who plays for the Pac-12 title, because Utah, if Utah wins and USC wins, Utah and USC are still alive to make the not the college football playoff, but the Pac-12 title game. What if we had to place one bet this weekend? What would be our bet? USC plus 15.5, Oregon minus 15.5, Washington minus 9.5, or Utah plus 9.5. What's our one bet this weekend if we place it?
Oregon minus 15.5.
Oregon.
Yeah. Nobody's giving us a chance.
How long are you going to play that?
Until they win a national championship.
Really?
Yeah. It'll continue.
I think Lanning wants to embarrass every team, as every coach does. I think there are certain moments, like I'm not saying they're going to hold USC to 6 by any stretch. There's no doubt he wanted to embarrass Deion in Colorado.
Yes, he did.
And this is a massive recruiting weekend for them, as is every weekend, I guess, with that program now. To be able to do that to USC is a hell of an opportunity. And so, again, I think USC – I will be a little surprised if USC scores north of 30 on Oregon's defense.
Really?
Yeah.
Even with Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's not an indictment if they do give up over 30. I see your point.
It's
just a read. And I think there's a real shot here. Oregon, they scored 63 on Cal. I don't think Cal's defense and USC's defense is different. We watched them play, and it was like a 1-point gap. I think if Oregon can score 50 to 60, they will.
They actually kind of scored 72 because they handed Cal a touchdown on a snap that hit a wide receiver's leg. So that kind of counts too. Throw another touchdown on the board. Why not? They helped Cal score their only touchdown of the game, or one of their only touchdowns of the game. There was an article that came out in the OC Register about the recruiting approach between Oregon and USC down south. And I think, to me, it's kind of the game within the game this weekend. If you can go read Nimick's reporting on all this, there's a lot of people that cover recruiting.
Yeah.
Oregon is turning this into a massive weekend where there are arguably their biggest recruiting weekend of the year. And I think it's built that way all season. We all assume this is going to be a top 10, top 15 matchup. USC hasn't quite lived up to their end of the bargain. But Oregon, I think, has circled this game as their big recruiting weekend all season. And it actually helps them to have a night game because it's easier for kids to play on Friday night and then travel Saturday to get to the game. So it's allowed them to get more people on campus. And the OC Register piece was talking to coaches down there who were a little questioning of USC's approach of like they come in with the mindset of we're USC, we can kind of get anybody we want in the LA area, whereas Oregon is always super aggressive and going after kids. And there were quotes in the article from coaches down there of like, yeah, we don't really know if USC's into our players or not. Like, we think they're going to offer them, but we know Oregon's here, and we're talking to their coaches on a weekly basis. And so their approach in recruiting is fascinating, and it's the game within the game this weekend.
Can I tell you a quick anecdote on recruiting?
Yeah.
By the way, amazing that USC went through the same stuff like 8 years ago, and they're back here again with a better coach doing it again, just assuming they get everybody.
Yeah.
Nimick tweeted out like the number 2 linebacker in the country, I think, is eyeing Oregon as an option. And he goes, it was a local player, a kid from one of the local schools. I'm blanking on the name. I should have brought the tweet up. Anyways, he said he had a commitment with ASU, I want to say, but now teams are sniffing from the Big Ten, Pac-12, SEC.
Okay.
And a link to the story. And I read the story. My first reaction to the tweet was, is he talking about Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA in the
As
Big
the
Ten?
Big Ten teams are
And Oregon State, Wazoo is the Pac-12.
Right.
I don't know why, but I've already kind of done that in my mind where when you say 2024 Big Ten, I've already put the Northwest school in the Big Ten in my mind. And I get Oregon State, Washington State would not be on the same level as some of those other programs in recruiting. But I mentally said, Wazoo, Oregon State, Big Ten teams, Washington, Oregon. I've already kind of associated them with their conferences. And I almost tweeted him, hey, man, I know what you mean, but like, do you mean this? But I'm like, that's too stupid of a question because I know what he means. But it's interesting that I had that takeaway reading it out loud.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oregon and Washington have shown no indication they're going to the Big Ten other than announcing they're leaving and releasing their schedule for next year. They have not shown any indication that they're leaving the conference. So.
Broke boys say what?
I don't know what you're talking about over there, all right? Let's get to Mike Jorgensen, the color analyst of the Oregon Ducks. What does he make of this weekend, the opportunity that lies ahead? We'll talk to him coming up next on The Fan.
The Fan.
We are going to Sprague the line coming up in 13 minutes, so get your fake sponsors into the Vancouver Ford text line, which is 503-864-6326. Have you guys finalized your picks? Everybody know where they're going?
Kinda. I have like 5 that I really like,
Okay.
and I'm sometimes on this. I like to write them down. Last weekend I had them ready to go. Didn't even sweat it.
Boom, boom, boom.
2-in-1 weekend. This is a weekend I like a lot of games and action, over-unders as well, and so it's hard to narrow those lists down. I got 5, and
Ooh, you got 5. You got to eliminate 2. We need a Sprague pick eliminator.
yeah, whatever I give you is the indication of where I'm going.
I like throwing in a couple of bonus picks afterwards, too. It's always fun.
Dude, if we moved it from 3 to 5, I wouldn't be upset by that. It's the one thing Danny Dusty do that I'm jealous of is they go 5.
It's a bigger chance for swings that you could have a rough weekend that really tanks your season or a great weekend that gets you back into the mix.
Do a 5-0 weekend for me and an 0 for 5 for you. I'd be in first place, I think.
You'd be right back. So we'll do that coming up here in a moment. Let's talk to the color analyst of the Oregon Ducks, Mike Jorgenson. You can give him a follow on Twitter at Jorgie_Mike.
Jorgie!
Getting ready to call a game tomorrow night. Jorgie, good morning, buddy. How we feeling? Like, last week was one of those weird ones where it's like, hey, what the hell's going on in the first quarter? And then you look up and they're up by 30 at halftime. That went from uncomfortable to blowout in a rapid manner.
Boy, I tell you, well, how the standards have changed too. My phone was lighting up in that first half as to what about the kind of play calls? What's going on here? Where are these guys going to get it going? And all of a sudden you look up, it's 35-13 at halftime. People are still pissed off type of situation. And even coach was a little mad. And I get it, just because the game started so funky and it felt like it was 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, and you score 4 touchdowns in the first quarter and only 2 count, and all these different things that happen. But sometimes that's the way it is. And good teams, like Oregon is seeing on a weekly basis, particularly last 2 or 3 weeks of the season with USC and obviously the Beavers and what they saw with Washington and some of those teams. You got to fight through situations like that sometimes. Sometimes it's not going to be all just smooth and every play works and that type of deal. So, for me, I look at things like that you have to fight through as a good problem to have. And when you come out with a win, that's the bottom line.
Jorgie, I got a 2-parter. The first part would be who in your life knows what you do for a living and still says, I'm going to text him in the middle of his job.
Yeah, during a broadcast. That's a bold move, Jorgie.
Isn't that amazing?
Can you name a name? Can you give us a name? Like, who's the person doing this?
No, I'm not going to reveal the names. I get plenty of them, though, I'll tell you that. And feel free if you have my phone number to text me at any time during the game too, especially Dirt. I know you do.
I do, yeah. Jorgie will send me.
Text him during?
I don't text him during the game, but Jorgie will sometimes after a big game send me, and I don't know if I'm the only one or if this is like a group chat, but I'll get like a deep thought breakdown. Like he sent me one after the Washington game, and it was actually very therapeutic to read your text, Jorgie, and to like kind of process that loss. It was an emotional time for me, and so I want to let you know that I appreciate those.
Yeah, just thinking of you. Just want to let you know that. So.
Well, Jorgie, the second part of my 2-parter here, the second part would be, do you remember the moment? Because in my lifetime growing up here, watching Oregon State, it was like some years it was like, hey, this team's really good. And they're like, all right, let's watch the local team. And other years we were kind of conditioned to say, they're not as good, but they're okay. What was the moment when Oregon kind of broke into the stratosphere of the upper echelon of college football? Do you remember the game or moment when the text got sent to you and you were like, wow, I guess expectations have changed quite a bit with some of the fans?
Oh, I would say more on a regular basis, probably in the early 2000s, maybe 20 years ago, during Joey's time when things were coming along like they were. I mean, of course, I don't think they were texting a whole lot back in the mid-'90s, what I was thinking about. So I'm just trying to think when, cell phones started texting and that type of deal. But, I wanted to say it was about that time when you started to get that expectation where the expectations were high. And, if there was a bad first quarter or a slow start to a game or that type of deal, people would be panicking because they just expected everything to be, you score on the first drive or you make a stop and score on your first offensive drive or you win the toss and you go down and, the different things like that. So it's funny how it works that way, but, it is what it is. Obviously, I know coaching staffs and coaches, and that's what they want to build towards, where the expectations and the standard, as you hear Dan Lanning say all the time, is the standard's high. And they hold these guys to a standard, and yet they've got to fight through some challenges. We have it in life outside of football too, where you just got to fight through things, and that's what they've been doing. So
yeah, it's a great perspective. Mike Jorgenson is our guest, color analyst of the Ducks, at Jorgie_Mike on Twitter. You can go give him a follow there. I chuckled a couple of weeks ago during the coaches show. You and Jerry brought up bowl eligibility and how that used to be a big deal for Oregon to like get bowl eligible. And Dan Lanning looked at you like he were speaking gibberish of like, what? Who cares? What? Well, yeah, of course we won 6 games.
Play a fun game last year. That mattered.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a long time. It's a pretty common thing. Let's get to the game this weekend, Jorgie. I mean, all of us circled this one at the start of the year. And now you go into it, USC's fired a defense coordinator. They're limping in a little bit with the tough loss of Washington. Where are you at on this matchup, and just how dynamic and tough of a challenge is it to try and slow down a quarterback like Caleb Williams?
Well, that's the to me, that's the unknown in every time you play USC with a guy like this, is you just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, Dan Lanning was talking about it this week on the coaches show where, you try to simulate a guy like that. You try to basically have a scout team quarterback run around for 10 seconds and cover for 10 seconds. He just makes people miss. He makes it miserable. And you want to come after the guy. And yet if you miss, he can turn the play into either a 50, 60-yard pass or a 40-yard run with his legs because he's so quick, so strong, can throw the ball anywhere on the field. And so, with USC, that's the thing about it. I mean, I can remember 2 weeks ago kind of following the USC-Cal game in Berkeley. And, Cal would jump up by 2 touchdowns. Looks like they're going to gain control of the game. And all of a sudden, USC's up by a touchdown 6 minutes later after being down by 14 points. That's the way this game feels to me before we even play it, is there's not going to be a spot where you're comfortable until the game is over and you have more points than the other team does. Yeah. It's just the way that it kind of plays out with these guys this year. They haven't played very good defense, USC, but they've played some tremendous offense. And the wild card is Caleb Williams. He makes it all happen.
How good is Caleb for you all time?
God, I mean, I haven't thought back all time. You talking about all time USC or just all time in the league?
Just in college football. I've been thinking about this through the year, even with their struggles, and he still does things at least 8 times a game where I'm like, good Lord, I've never seen somebody be able to do that. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say he's probably top 10 if I really had a chance to sit down and look over all the different quarterbacks that have played over time. I mean, anytime, to me, you look at stats like his are, 3,000 yards passed and 28 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, given the lack of protection that he's had and the crap that he's got beat out of him against the Notre Dames and people like that. I mean, that's just unbelievable to me right there, that piece of it, because he's running for his life half the time. And he's a tough sucker, too, because he gets beat up in a lot of those games when people do get a free shot on him. But that's the thing about it. Not very many teams get a clean shot on them. Utah did the Pac-12 championship last year. They got a lot of clean shots on them and ended up beating them up pretty bad. It looked like Notre Dame maybe got 2 or 3 a little bit earlier this year. But even when you get to him, people don't get a clean shot because if he sees you, he can make you miss. Yeah. He can make you miss every time if he can see you.
I used the analogy earlier. He's like that fly that's in your house. It's just really annoying. You can't get rid of it. And every time you try and swing at it, knock it down, you're like, it goes to another room. And you just get your blood. You start to get angrier and angrier as you're trying to kill this darn fly, but you just can't find a way to catch him. Last one for you, Jorgie. 7:30 game. How we feeling about a night game? First one of the year. And shorts or no shorts tomorrow? 48. It's going to be chilly.
Jorgie, can I add too? Do you take a nap for these late games? Do you have a nap time at some point during the day?
No, that's for old people. I guess I'm getting there, aren't
I? You're young at heart.
I was going to ask your age,
you're
but
young at heart. Come on.
Naps. No naps. Love night games. Love night games. I really do. I mean, this is the first one this year for Oregon, and it's just there's a different energy, a different pop when the lights are on and it's at night, and especially with a team like USC in town, or any of the top 3 or 4 teams in this league. If they came in at night, the crowd's going to be juiced in more ways than one, and it's going to be loud. It's going to be packed. I mean, it's fun. I love night games. And so, I'll be ready, man. I'll be up early in the morning watching a lot of the really good games going on, and then I can't wait to get over to the stadium. And it's going to be a fun game, I'll tell you. You're just going to be I think you're going to be on the edge of your seat all throughout this game, but just because of the way the USC plays football.
Yeah, Caleb has the ability to do that to you. Well, there you go. Mike Jorgenson, the color analyst of the Ducks. Go give him a follow on Twitter at Jorgie_Mike. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, Jorgie. It should be a lot of fun. Thanks as always for having on the show, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, love being on with you guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
There you go. Great stuff. Mike Jorgensen, the color analyst of the Oregon Ducks.
Georgie.
I know. I kind of went George there at the end.
Hey, it's kind of, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
He sent me a long text after the UW loss. I'm not kidding. I was like sitting in my house, depressed as hell. Like, God, I hate life. This is stupid. And I see a text alert pop up. It's Mike Jorgensen. I'm like, oh, God, what is Jorgie? What did I screw? Did I do something wrong? And I'm like, it's just his thoughts on the game. It was kind of like a paragraph for too long. And I read through it, and I thought, this feels really good. I like to read this.
Your inability to tell if it's a group chat or not is kind of concerning in 2023. It literally shows you if there's more than one number on that conversation. If that's just a solo text, it's just... And maybe he sends the same text.
That's what I meant. Like, did he copy and paste it to a bunch of different people that are following, like that are in the Oregon circle? I knew it wasn't a group text, but I didn't know if I was the only one that got it or not.
He could be that person. I'm going to say no. He respects what you are enough to say, I know Andy needs me.
He needs me in this moment.
I can deal with this. Andy can't deal with this.
He was around the dark days of Oregon football. I was not around the dark days of Oregon football.
Well, that's why I was kind of curious, and I didn't want to just limit it to text, but like what was the point of his life, whether it was text or no text, where somebody's like, man, those first two quarters,
not acceptable.
Unacceptable. And he's like, we won the game by 10 or more. Like, I am curious when that transformation happened. It probably was around that time that Joey was kind of at the end of his career.
Yeah, I love that people text him during games, too. That's hilarious. We get those. Sometimes people will call me during a show, and I'm like, do you not? Like, I work 3 hours a day. 3 hours. That's all. You just have a 3-hour window where you can't call me. I'll call you back at 9:05. Send me a text or something.
I have a buddy in Korea, and I sent him something this morning at 4:15 a.m., which is like 3:40 or 4 o'clock the next day.
Yeah.
And he responded and said, man, you're up early. I go, well, my show is 6 to 9 a.m. And he goes,
I'm on my way to work.
Oh, man, did they just make you start working that time slot?
Like, thanks.
He's not a sports fan at all. I mean, he's like a pharmacist. Like, he has no idea of what's happening in the sports world.
Yes,
and he is in Korea.
He's in South Korea, and I also never want to talk about my job or what we do on this show, ever. I'm off the air. I appreciate people that come up and say, hey, I like the show. That I'm into.
Yes.
But I'm not go to somebody's house, you know what I do, guy. So, like, nobody really knows in my life when and what I'm doing.
You know what I do? I'm a YouTube celebrity. I'm a YouTube influencer now.
I think you need at least 1,000 subscribers on a page to classify yourself as a YouTube star.
Well, we are at 917, so
all right,
83 of you
screaming.
I'm trying to get Pax on board. Finally, I told him we were on YouTube.
Yeah, now
you can see the old man.
Now
on
he's
YouTube.
got his attention. Finally.
YouTube. Okay.
See what I'm saying? Like, and your kid's what, with 23? 22 years. His kid's 22. My kid's 7 and 11, and all of those ages. What do they have in combined? You only matter once you get on YouTube.
Exactly.
We're now
He's
YouTube
like,
celebrities.
You're on YouTube, and he went and found the, show we did yesterday. He's like, oh, there you are.
This is not meant as a shot in any way, but like people that age or younger, it is a much bigger deal to come into your house and tell them I'm on YouTube versus saying I'm on the CW.
Yes.
Like I would be jacked if we were on the CW.
I am on the CW. I'll be on the CW in a month.
There you go. But if you tell them we're on YouTube, autographs and photos. The WB, to them, no.
WB. All right. Get your fake sponsors into the Vancouver Ford text line.
I think we can do that.
503-864-6326. Well, I can because I'm a WB star, so I can. I'm allowed to. I'm in the family.
But like, it's a Kevin Bacon here. There's no degrees
6
here.
degrees of separation. Is that what we're arguing? Yeah.
What's his wife's name? Kira Sedgwick? Sedgwick?
Sedgwick. Yes.
I'm Kira Sedgwick. You're Kevin Bacon.
All right, let's do some gambling. We actually had a really good weekend as a show last week. Can we double it up? We'll see. We'll do that next. First, your Swag with Sports Center.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by A&E Plumbing, Heating, and Air, serving Portland, Southwest Washington, and the Gorge, online at aneheatingandcooling.com. It's hard to stop a train. First on the Fan, can the Ducks and Beavers trains keep going to a potential Pac-12 title game? Number 6 Oregon hosting a reeling USC squad that has fallen out of the top 25, losing 3 of their last 4. It's a 7:30 kick. You'll hear it right here on the Fan Saturday. Our live pregame coverage from Eugene will start at 3 o'clock. Ducks 14.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. 12th-ranked Oregon State is 20.5-point favorites over Stanford, who comes to Corvallis for a 2:30 kick on the Pac-12 Network. Number 5, Washington, trying to stay undefeated. They host number 18, Utah. That is a 12:30 kick on Fox 12. Oregon Huskies are 9.5-point favorites. The Bears defense held the Carolina Panthers without an offensive touchdown, grinding out a 16-13 win on Thursday night. Undrafted NCAA Division II quarterback Tyson Bagent now has 2 NFL wins as a starter, while the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young of the Panthers, stuck on 1. College hoops tonight right here on The Fan. The Oregon Ducks hosting the Montana Grizzlies. It's their home opener at Matt Knight Arena, 6 o'clock tip. Our pregame coverage starts at 5:30 following primetime. Ducks 16.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigard from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Your favorite fan shows are on YouTube. This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
On 1080 The Fan.
Sprague in the line. Sprague in the line. Sprague in the line. Sprague in the line.
See what we got here. Sprague in the line brought to you by Dirt Cakes, so everyone can eat a cupcake like a somewhat normal person.
That's not cake I want to eat. Dirt cake.
You don't want my cake? Sprague and Lime brought to you by the balding caterpillar crawling on Sprague's upper lip. Well played. Well played. Sprague and Lime brought to you by hashtag Fade the BetQL best bet. I thought fading Sprague was cashing in.
Dude.
Are they having a rough go this year?
They've had some 5-star lock of the weeks that have not been close.
It's still my favorite Sprague and Line week of the season.
Yes.
Is when Swigard emotionally and mentally checked out of the segment and took the 3 best bets for BetQL and went 0-3.
Swag he went to Seattle for the weekend on a guy's trip.
Yes.
And instead of caring at all about his picks, he just stole an email and lost all of them.
0-3. Sprague and Lime brought to you by the YouTube group chat. Like a Sprague pick, nobody can really follow along with what's happening.
Hey, we're all friends. We're just different communities.
Sprague and Lime brought to you by 19 straight runs. It was 19 runs that helped Phil Knight start Nike, and now Phil is spending millions to try and stop 19 straight runs. You're damn right he is. He's going to spend a lot of money this weekend.
Oregon State has done a lot of good things for Oregon, like create a baseball team, up the defensive line, care about sports.
Ran out of gas there.
I did, kind of, yeah.
Sprague and Lime brought to you by Jonathan Smith laying the big wood on special teams. Still more reliable than a Sprague pick.
Today I'm laying the big wood.
Maybe the most offensive comment of all time, given that he ran Atticus Sappington.
Lay the wood, baby.
30 yards out.
We had a great weekend as a show last weekend, everybody. We had a 9-2 weekend combined. You guys went 2-1. I went 3-0. Here's what we hit on. I hit on the Eagles, -3 against the Cowboys, the Bengals, -2.5 Sunday Night Football, and the Browns laying the wood against the Cardinals. Sprague, you hit on the Bucks +3 because the Texans field goal kicker got hurt. The Eagles -3 against the Cowboys, and then missed on the Seahawks and Ravens game. Swag got backdoored by Purdue in the Michigan-Purdue game, but hit on the Giants and Raiders under of 37, and the Ravens -6 against Seattle. So, season standings, here's where we're at. I'm at 19-11 after the weekend last weekend. Sprague's 2-1 weekend got you at 14-16.
I am 14-7 in the last 21 picks.
Yes, you are.
I started out 0-9.
You did. You had a rough go early on. And Swag 12-18. So that's where we're at right now. T-Box is mine after a 3-0 weekend. I will
caddy uniforms in my size.
I normally root for people. I sometimes root against Dirt on the weekends because it's like, this is maybe the most passionate thing he does on the show.
I love Sprague in the line.
You want to win so badly.
I love Sprague in the line. And
all
I'm
right,
not,
let's go. We got to get
I'm not taking these little fancy college lines too, all right? First one up for me. I've liked this game all week. I don't know if I'm irrationally confident, but I'm riding a heater, so let's go. 49ers are off a bye. They're healthy. I think they're the best team in the NFL, or one of the best teams in the NFL, and I don't think Jacksonville is in that category. I think this is a bounce-back spot for San Francisco. Brock was on his farm. He was doing his cow thing, whatever the hell they do in Iowa. He's back, ready to play football. 49ers -3 in Jacksonville, pick number 1.
Who's next? Me?
You go ahead. Yep.
I'll take Falcons -1.5. I just need them to win the game. Like, Kyler's back, sure. Just win the game. And I hate Arthur Smith. Win the game. Atlanta Falcons -1.5.
I'm going to start in college. Nobody's hotter in the Pac-12.
Here we go again.
He despises
Just
your college picks. I don't get it. Lay it out for me, sir.
Supposed to do Arizona.
Well, picks that our listeners can actually gamble on. That's the whole point of the segment. But it's okay.
If they go to casino on the way down to the valley. Just start a little earlier. Head over, hit the buffet, make some picks.
Hell yeah, brother.
Go down south.
Hell yeah, brother.
It's a 7:30 kick. You got all day.
Come on.
Let's go.
How much you laying on this pick?
Huh?
How much you laying on this pick?
What's the game, Swigard?
Arizona -10 at Colorado.
Yeah.
Give me some Jed fish.
Oh, that fish smells good.
All right, pick number 2. I'm going to go to Sunday Night Football. I'm not going to watch this game. I'm not going to watch this game because it's going to be bad football, and I don't like bad football. What does bad football mean? Bad football means you bet the under. The Jets can't score on anybody. Okay. Their defense is legitimate. The Raiders suck. I'm not getting fooled by last week. Okay. I love the under in this game. 36.5, I believe, is the number I'm seeing. I'll pull it up on DraftKings real quick to make sure I got the right one. And I'm locking in the bet, but I'm on the under of Jets and Raiders Sunday Night Football.
I am going to go to a
37, by the way, on DraftKings. 37.
37. Sorry.
37.
I'm the one who turns out the tweet. 37. Okay. I'm going to go to a favorite here on the road. I know it's always a little dangerous to play that game, but I like it too much. I think the Lions are a better team than the Chargers. Ooh. I think they're a better team by more than 3 points. I think Roar Boys are going to be able to control things, and I'm sorry. I cannot trust bearded or no bearded Brandon Staley. They didn't play very well, and I know they won that game last week, but they did not play a very good game. I think the Herbert finger injury is a bigger detriment to his ability than let on. I'll take Lions minus the 3 on the road for a home game for Detroit.
Okay, Swag.
I am going to make a pick on that game, but I think this is going to be your weird, wacky, what the hell just happened game in the NFL, and I'm going to take the over of 48.5. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think you can get punt return touchdowns. You can get all sorts of nonsense, and it might be the last team to have the ball wins.
You almost scared me out of changing my pick because we went head-to-head last week, and you absolutely obliterated me.
He did, yeah. He's got the bragging rights in the head-to-head right now.
I was scared. You scared me.
Last pick for me, I try and have a philosophy of not gambling on bad teams, but what the hell, sometimes at this point in the season, you throw the steering wheel out, there's no rules that apply. Tampa's at home against Tennessee this weekend. Tennessee is 0-4 on the road. Tampa, this is basically a pick 'em. They're favored by a point. Will Levis is going on the road. Tampa was embarrassed by a rookie quarterback last week. I don't think it's going to happen again. I don't think Tennessee is very good. Neither is Tampa, but give me the home team. They can win the game by a field goal. I'm on the Bucs -1 against the Titans.
I like that pick. My final pick, I don't normally do this. I made a vow about 4 weeks ago not to gamble on this team anymore, but most people who gamble know that you never really are true to your word. Dirt, riddle me this, Batman. Who won that Eagle-Dallas game last week?
The Eagles did.
But what was kind of the narrative about Dak coming out of that game?
Dak could win a Super Bowl.
So Cowboys off of a loss. Riddle me this, Swigard. Who's starting at quarterback for the Giants?
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito. I'm sorry. And if he gets hurt, Matt effing Barkley? Dude's been out of the league for 2 years and cared more about weightlifting and golf than football. I don't give a damn what the spread is. Cowboys are winning this game 34-3.
Oh, no.
Give me the biggest possible wood you could throw at me. I'll take
Today
it.
I'm laying the big wood.
Cowboys
Knock on wood if you're
minus
with me.
17. I'm knocking on my genitals now. Lay the wood.
Wow.
Danny DeVito on the road. No, thank you. Cowboys minus 17.
That's some Greg Odenwood right there.
That is massive. And you know what they used to call me in Seattle in my internship? The pickle sniffer.
Yeah.
Because I looked at Greg Oden's wood, and I can admit that. I'm loud. I'm proud. I'm a taxpayer. I deserve to look at it.
Okay.
Cowboys minus 17.
My final pick quickly. I think Joe Burrow's finally healthy. He was running around there quite a bit. I'm going to take the Bengals less than a touchdown at home against the Texans.
Like it? You love it.
Minus 6.5 Bengals at home.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. All right, here we go. I am on, again, records. I'm 19-11. I'm on the 49ers -3 against the Jags. The Jets Raiders under Sunday night of 37, and the Bucs -1 against the Titans. Sprague at 14-16 is on the Falcons -1.5 against the Cardinals. The Lions -3 on the road against the Chargers, and the Giants laying the wood the Cowboys laying the wood against the Giants -17.
Passion speech.
Giants have no wood.
They have no wood. No wood whatsoever. And Swag is 12-18. He's on Arizona -10. In college football against Colorado, the Chargers and Lions over a 48.5, and the Bengals -6.5 against Houston. Let me see if I have anything else.
I couldn't
on here.
find a line on Linfield Whitworth for the NWC championship down in McMinnville, but go Wildcats.
Okay.
Jay Swigert have a prop bet of a touchdown.
I saw one of the coaches down there tagged you and Furness in a tweet.
That's, that's my former high school partner, Brett Elliott.
There you go.
What is that? What does that mean?
He used to do high school games with me here at the Fan, play-by-play.
Okay.
He's now the offensive coordinator there at
There we go.
Linfield.
He's trying to stir up a little Hornets
Trying to
nest
stir
between
it up.
Swag and Furness.
Go
We got
Wildcats,
we got
huh?
the Swigard versus Furness battle this week.
Wildcats looking to go perfect 9-0 and
Let's do it.
get their way into the playoffs.
Love it. Sprague and Line brought to you by a recently new father, reminding Dirt that what Sprague says about fatherhood is far more helpful than his gambling advice.
You know what? I'm not even mad. That's a true statement.
Sprague and Line brought to you by Sprague's BZ4X. He can't give you a winning bet, but at least he has an electric vehicle.
I'm saving the earth while making myself poor.
Sprague and Line brought to you by filling a tiny Trojan hat with all of my successful Sprague picks.
Poor Danny.
Tiny little Trojan hat. All right, let's wrap it up next on The Fan.
Seahawks football is This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
There you go. Fist pumping your way into the weekend every single Friday. Shout out to the people who have subscribed to the YouTube page. We're up to 921, 4 at a time. I saw a Sprague and Line sponsor in the chat that I wanted to throw in too from Kyle. This is a good one.
Sure.
Sprague and Line, just like Kevin Bacon and Hollow Man, you can't see a Sprague winning bet. That's a deep cut right there. Deep cut.
It's a very creepy movie.
Very creepy. Invisible dude. I haven't seen that in a long time.
The
but I
bathroom
remember it.
scene bothered me.
Yeah, very uncomfortable.
As a youth, it bothered me. I'm like, oh God.
Very uncomfortable. So shout out to everybody on YouTube. We love you all. And we love you if you're listening to AM radio or the HD2 radio. And we love Football Fridays, man. We love Football Fridays.
Oh, look, this is not to give more credit for one than the others, but like seriously, shout out all the AM listeners.
Yeah.
That they're still going to the AM dial and
Still standing.
I like my radio to cut out a little bit and a little bit of staticky sound to be with your voice.
I sound a little raspy. I sound sexy on AM radio.
I know I've brought up the car I have the last couple days. You'd be shocked to know there's no HD2 signal in the car, so I'm
Really?
still listening on AM.
You don't have an HD2 radio signal in there? That's
I
weird.
might, but I don't know how to find it.
It's a little confusing.
I'm never read manual of car guy. I either figure it out or I don't. There's a couple buttons that it says like fast and slow, and I don't know what those do, and I never will. No, I don't really care.
Free ball it. Why not? Hey, right now, if you text Nimrod to 503-864-6326, you'll be entered for your chance to win tickets to see Green Day at Providence Park on September 25th, 2024. To the person who was texted in 37,000 times this morning, you're only entered once. So the number of texts you send in, it just pisses us off, and it doesn't give you a better chance of winning the tickets. So stop texting that in. But if you haven't texted it in yet, do. Nimrod, 503-864-6326, your chance to win Green Day tickets. More details at 1080thefan.com. Boys, we got a fun football weekend. Fun football weekend.
Also got some big basketball games this weekend. No?
Are we doing the play-in thing again today? Is that a thing today?
I don't know.
When are we playing in?
What do we got?
Playing
I got Pilots UC
Are we cupping
Riverside
it?
2 o'clock Sunday. That's what I got.
That's what Swag's got.
The play-in is
Looking
Tuesday.
to go 3-0.
Next Tuesday. Okay, we're cupping it next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday,
Cup
yeah.
check. Okay, we'll do our cup check segment next Tuesday.
But you got Blazers-Lakers on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
Sunday
watch that
night
over
late,
Sunday Night
7
Football.
p.m.
Yeah.
When that Sunday night football game turns into a crap fest.
When my under's
Dude.
cashing, I'm going to be watching Blazers
Hornets,
and Lakers.
Wizards, Pelicans, Rockets, T-Wolves, Spurs, Wemby.
I just want to see the Brazil Timberwolf eat another thing on Twitter.
The Brazil accounts in sports are very weird right now.
I think that's why I'm getting a lot of those porn bot followers. I think it's because I'm watching those Timberwolf eating videos from Brazil. There's weird stuff.
Yeah, I'm
going
sure
on
that's
there,
why
man.
you're getting
Yeah.
porn bot
There's
followers.
no other porn that's being looked at on my Twitter. That will do it for us, folks. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all the footballs, and we will talk to you Monday at 6 a.m. Colin